Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, he's always there. I can't get rid of him, but I wouldn't anyway. It's Andrew Cabal. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. That's actually great to hear.
Yeah.
Great to hear. You know,
I
I
wouldn't
mean, I
just
do.
toss you aside. I
I
mean,
mean,
nobody would
better
listen if you weren't here, Andrew. I mean,
better opportunities do come along. I would
you
say.
do
I
see all
mean,
the movies, so
I know. Where else are you going to find somebody who watches 12 to 15 movies a week for a podcast? Come on,
not
I'm
many people would
invaluable,
do that.
indisposable.
I
That's what you have to
That's
be.
why he does it. He's like,
Mm.
if I don't do all this watching Stephen, he'll try to get rid of me.
Well, you have to. Yeah, you got to contribute somehow. You know what I mean?
Of
Also, you
course.
got to do a little something in life to stick out, just a little bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That little extra that people aren't expecting. Always keep people guessing, so to keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and yours is watching 15 movies a week.
you know what's crazy? That's only the movies I watch for the podcast. That's not even the stuff I watch in my leisure
You
time.
have leisure time?
It's not leisure time. It's stuff I want to watch. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
as a thing.
Because sometimes a lot of these releases you don't want to watch. Be
Some of
honest.
well,
Be
some of
honest.
them are not very good. Some of them are movies I would not choose to do it unless if we weren't talking about it up for the show.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're like you said.
That's exactly what you're saying.
That's why. Yeah. That's why you have
But
to be here.
we are speaking of here, we're back here once again for spine number 103, 103. And yeah, we keep on trucking along, keep on moving, and we also had another interview with some really cool guests this week, and these are the people from Treasured Films.
Yes.
And yes, Stephen, we got to have a really interesting interview with them. Kind of a brand new label at the time. They only had one movie out, The Last Hunter, and since then they've announced another release that they're putting out on Blu-ray called Satan's Little
No, no,
Helper.
no, no, no. Santa's Little Helper.
Oh, Santa's
That's
Little.
what
I'm
I
sorry.
said apparently during the interview, and I didn't realize it.
Yes, and that may or may not be accurate depending on what people hear in this upcoming
I
interview.
haven't listened back to know, but Andrew told me that I said it, and we don't really know, so for sure. So you guys let me know. Uh, but well,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a little
yeah,
Easter egg
yeah.
to look for.
Yeah. But yes, we the two guys there, the two guys basically running the ship there, the only guys, Graeme Lloyd, who is kind of like the founder. He's the one running, the main guy running things, and then his technical support advisor, kind of helping him get everything going, is a man, Tom Lee Rutter. Them two guys together are Treasured Films. And yeah, I love the first release. I have their first release, The Last Hunter, a non-exploitation film. It's really fun. A great release. A lot of good features. Great packaging, and they just did a great job with that first release. So yeah, Satan's Little Helper's coming its own pre-order. So please go check out their site and look into getting a pre-order. Yeah, it was great talking to them. They, they're from the kind of like, they're from the UK, and where they are in the UK, they are kind of what in comparison would be kind of like the middle America here. They're kind of like in that like middle of nowhere, and they're doing this boutique label from the middle of nowhere. And it's kind of interesting talking to them about how that plays into what they do and how it has difficulties, and how they're in this just kind of niche area of their country doing this niche thing. It's kind of cool. So I just love hearing the passion, of course, like we hear from all our guests. And let me stop babbling and let you just hear it for yourself. So just relax your ears, maybe get you something to drink, some oodles and noodles, and listen to this interview with Graeme Lloyd and Tom Lee Rutter of Treasured Films. So, joining us this week, we have two guys coming from the UK, and they are bringing us the behind the scenes on one of the exciting new labels coming out to everybody in the Blu-ray world, and that is Treasured Films. We have Graeme Lloyd and Tom Lee.
Rutter.
Come on, Rutter. See, he got it.
It wasn't that hard. I
him
had so much faith in you.
I wanted him to say it because it would have. There was no way I was going to get. I kind of like like pressure got to me, and then at the last minute I forgot it. It doesn't matter how long ago he told me. Literally, like
A
less than a
minute?
minute ago, he told me it, and then I forgot it already. It's because I suck at this, but it's
Yeah.
okay.
I know practice makes perfect sometimes.
Well, it doesn't. Not in this case. But I'm gonna give myself a break. But thanks, guys, for coming. Thanks for guys for joining us this week.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, of course, man. We're excited. Always excited about new labels joining the game, as we like to call it, because there's tons of boutique labels popping up all the time, and introducing us to new films and reintroducing us. And of course, your first release was the Vietnam exploitation film, The Last Hunter. Great release here. Look at this thing. It is beautiful. It's well put together. He can't get much better than this for a first release, I think. So we'll get into this and see if we can pull any other information out of these guys to get any teases. Maybe they'll share some interesting up and coming stuff. But of course, we also want to go into your backgrounds and see how you got here. But I do want to let's just get into a little bit on the personal side about the love of movies. That's where this all begins, is our love for film. So let's start with Graeme. Tell us a little bit about your beginnings when it came to getting into film.
Well, really, I've been a physical media collector for a good many years. I like the whole package. Obviously, you have the film itself presented in the best quality possible, but then you also have the packaging, and they look great, and you like to display them on your shelf at home. And as my wife constantly tells me, you've got too much stuff. So I don't listen to her and just keep buying my stuff. The problem is, of course, you get up to this situation where you have a ridiculous to watch pile. And then sometimes it becomes more of a stress than a pleasure, because you think, well, I've got to get through this. I've got to get through this. And when you start making some headway, you buy a lot more. But yeah, really, it's just a passion for film. I'm a big physical media film buff. And so, after sort of several years of collecting, I just thought, well, why don't I do my own thing? Not to be better than anyone else, but really just to put out films and content and packaging that I was interested in. So yeah, we've begun with, and as you started to say, the Last Hunter. We think we've done a reasonable job on that. Really surprised that it was available. To be honest, I thought that somebody would have picked that up a long time ago. And it was a great film, Antonio Margheriti. Like
Yeah, you got to say it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. David Warbeck, who we love, and I thought probably this was the only time I was going to put a film out starring him. So I wanted to do a bit of tribute to him as well. So therefore, we had a lot of material for the booklets and digitally on the disc as well. But we put it out, and I don't think it's a bad debut release. Hey, Tom?
No, it's great. I'd buy it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, why don't you?
I might have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how the figures look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always we always are kind of astonished when a new label pops up, because we know that doing Blu-rays and it's a niche market. It's not every and we know that DVDs sell more. Still to this day, to the general public, it's still the higher format for selling things. But there is a market. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of passionate people that are buying Blu-rays and 4Ks and doing this thing. And I could say, before you even told us about your background and like that, really this is all about you being a collector as well, as why you wanted to do this. Is I could tell that all from your about from on your website. Your about was literally kind of that. I could tell you were a collector because you describe all the things that a collector would want from releases, and it's very to the T, like, hey, we're going to bring out the best features possible, the best packaging we can, like, and we're going to work as long on it as possible before we do the next thing. That's what we want, and we don't need, I mean, God bless the Arrows and for the 5 or 6 releases a month, and the Kino's 10 releases a day, and but it's sometimes it's okay when a label only puts out like one a month or one every couple months, and like, takes their time with one film and really puts all the love and care into one film. And sometimes it's budgetary, of course. It's all about, that's also a factor, but we're okay with, as long as it's, a prime release. I mean, I think of like Second Sight. Second Sight typically do like one a month, and it's usually like a banger, and it's like the best. There's no reason to buy that movie again after you've bought their version of it. Like,
yeah, and I think one thing we've, I think, emphasized here on Chasing Labels, as well as I think other people have noticed, that there is a uniqueness to the boutique label world when it comes to these releases. Like, these aren't just like, let's pump out as many as we can. These are specifically catered to certain type of collectors, people who are paying attention to all of the details. They go over them with a fine-tooth comb, as they say. So it's great to see, for many people that we've interviewed here on Chasing Labels, they start out as movie fans, movie collectors, so they know what to expect, because they're kind of making things that they would want to buy themselves. You know what I mean? So they have the collecting mindset going into it, so they know what to put into it,
Right.
which is great.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, Tom, please tell us, were you like a lawyer before this? Was it something born? No, I'm just kidding.
Imagine.
I'd make a terrible lawyer. So I was brought up with the tail end of the video boom myself. So fond memories of going to the video shop. But then my brother and myself, we're filmmakers. Our first casts were our cuddly toys, and we'd graduate to using friends and then actors. So I make feature films and short films.
Nice.
Of the B movie, no budget variety.
Some of my favorites. Yeah, I love that. I love it.
Exactly. It all feeds into the same thing, doesn't it? And I connected with Graeme on Facebook because it transpired that we're both from the Black Country, which is the industrial heart of the West Midlands, and that was quite cool. And then I realised, and then Graeme was telling me about what he was up to with his business, Film Treasures, which was an e-commerce service that provides all the boutique labels to UK customers. So we're talking, your Kinos and your Severins and your Vinegar Syndromes. So Graeme saw a really good gap in the market there to bring these amazing releases to UK shores. And he invited me to come and see him at his unit in Craigleith, which is in the heart of the Black Country. And I turned up, saw his stock on the shelves, and I was back in that video shop again, like as a kid, going, wow. And then Graeme told me his plans for the label, and he told me he's got The Last Hunter, which was amazing to me, and then he told me about some further plans, and subsequently poached me basically, and then said, you're coming to work for me.
Yeah. Well, Tom's being a bit modest there, because I'm going to big him up now. Is that why I headhunted him was that he made an excellent short film called Bella in the Witch Elm, and we should just explain, because I'm sure there's a lot of Americans saying, where the hell is the Black Country? We live in the Midlands in the UK, and the Black Country is so cool because it used to be a big industrial area with coal mines and steelworks, and everything therefore was what's the saying? Black by day, red by night, or
something like that.
Yeah, and so it was a big, so that therefore it's known locally as the Black Country.
Chain maker.
Yeah, and all that. We did lots of things, production. So, but in terms of the horror world, we're in a town called Dudley, and Dudley, we have a famous director. You might have heard of him, called James Whale, who did.
Oh no, I don't know who that guy is.
I don't know whether you heard this guy. He's not really But yeah, he was born in our hometown, and hardly anybody in Dudley knows that. So we've got plans to sort of, bring that up and pay homage to him, because he was born and bred here before he went to the States. So yeah, that's our claim to fame. But Tom's a great indie filmmaker. He's just finishing a film. I hope you don't mind me saying this, good.
No.
Superstition, which was featuring Caroline Munro. And I just saw this guy's skills, and we had the same similar tastes, and I thought, what a great asset Tom would be. So that's. I sort of said to him, look, I haven't got a lot of money, but if I can afford to pay you, will you come across, join us, and we'll try and make a go of this thing.
It was a no-brainer.
And he said, yeah, thankfully.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. So here we are today.
Yeah.
That's great. So do we look? I know it seems a little maybe conceited, but where is there going to be a Tom Rutter box set of his shorts coming? Because I mean, I'd be interested.
Maybe when I'm dead.
I guess sometimes people need to die first.
Yeah,
but
before they see the light of day.
Yeah.
But that's great, man. I love that. I love that. There's people that understand filmmaking behind the scene. I always think that's an essential thing too. To even film fans in general. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be somebody that understands filmmaking to really appreciate movies, but I think it helps. And it helps.
It's also appreciating the lineage of where these labels come from, and for us to for Graeme to be doing this in the Black Country is a beautiful thing, because you think of labels and you think of the activity of distribution and of activity in general. You think of London, and the city, and we're out of the city. So this is what's exciting about it.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're essentially for the US, it would be like living in in the middle of our country, like living in Ohio or not Ohio, or like Iowa, or like Missouri,
more like Midwest or just West in general.
Absolutely.
The Rust Belt, as we call it.
So it's very like industrial area with probably a rich history of blue collar working, really.
Well, Dudley, going back to Dudley, it's actually Dudley had a significant label before, didn't it, Graeme? Called Duran, and Duran were kind of really the forerunners of domestic Super 8 reels, and they made an exclusive deal with Disney to distribute Disney films on Super 8 back in the day, and this was one of the first companies Disney ever kind of farmed out to that weren't a Disney company, So Dudley's got a really rich history of distribution there, again, which nobody really picks up on much.
Not nowadays, no.
That's great. That's you're teaching us something, because that's something I would have never known.
Well, this is a label that pops up and then moved on to home video, and when you read like books on horror films and for us, like Section 3 Video Nasties and whatnot, they released a good handful of those as well. So, they were part of that fabric, but, I wouldn't have realised that they were so close to us,
Yeah.
So, amazing where it all comes from.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes a lot of the most interesting things in our history as people come from the smallest of places. Places where there's not, because there's people that are, when you live in a small town, or you live, or live in a place where there's not a lot of things going on other than, industrial work. I think people have a lot of time for creativeness, so I think that's where, and an unfiltered creativeness, because maybe they're not exposed to so much of the outside world. So it becomes a lot more interesting. Things come out of there a lot more interesting. But I do want to get into your tastes. Tom, let's talk about some of your inspiration for the films you make, or just in general, your favorite kind of foundational favorite things that you like to watch.
Well, everything from SOV to British classics and whatnot.
Yeah.
Also, really hardcore porn as well. No.
Hey, that's Vinegar Syndrome really sets us up for that. So.
Oh right, sorry,
it's interesting, but that it gets brought up here on the podcast a lot, just because a lot of the boutique labels put them out, and it's all part of the cinematic history.
Well,
it's all part of it.
Well, especially when you consider when Vinegar Syndrome released Dracula Sucks, and then Massacre Video releases hardcore, and then this is hardcore porn with gore and stuff in it. So, but no, a lot of my films take their cues from silent cinema, as right through to the 70s. So Hexen's a big favourite, Witchcraft of the Ages, 1922. But then also films from the 1970s. You know, everything. We're a broad church. You know, that's kind of what it's like to be a film fan, isn't it? A cinephile means they watch everything without judgment, and I think that's what's so special about horror fans, is that you get a lot of cinephiles who kind of turn their nose up at horror and genre films, whereas I feel that horror fans, we come into cinema through horror, and we're therefore introduced from horror to world cinema, art house, and we've got a more kind of robust taste then, and we like to take in all walks of cinema. Whereas I think, you know, you do get a lot of people turn their nose up at it, which I think is unfair, because I think horror is the great gateway drug to cinema, you know.
I can't agree more. And I mean, I think people, they agree with that even when they don't realize it, because some of the most popular filmmakers right now are introducing people through horror. They're introducing things to people through horror, like your Ari Aster's. It's horror, but it's not like straight up like horror. It's like dramatic, psychological dramas, or somebody like Robert Eggers is doing something that's horror, but it's also like folklore. It's also like got a history to it. It's got a richness to it that is something that you would typically see maybe in more art house cinema, but they're being introduced to it through horror. So horror is a way to really get into so many different types of, you know, genre filmmaking, just through its, you know, point of view. So
yeah, horror's been around in cinematic history, you know, since the silent era. It's been around for so long. I think, you know, I think of Nosferatu all the time, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, you know, you can go on and
And
on.
even further back from there, I mean, look at what Georges Méliès was doing with his special effects films. A lot of those were like haunted houses, ghosts, the devils. You know, it's fantastic.
the moon watching you with a big
Smiling.
Yeah. So it's been there right from the birth of cinema, really.
Definitely. Graeme, please tell us some of your favorite, you know, foundational films that you're kind of got you into film.
Oh goodness, I could be here all day. Typical ones are, I don't know. I mean, I like a gory film, but I like atmosphere more. So, you know, I love, for example, the film The Exorcist. I think that's a great film. There's you know, the atmosphere and a spiritual showdown, which was, you probably know, you guys, was effectively banned over here for many years. You know, and things like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, great film. And it wasn't so long ago. I was telling Tom, because Tom's 15 years younger than me, and he's kind of missed all this. But I was telling him how, you know, in the old days, that I had to phone up companies in the States and buy films. This was on VHS, and the guy would say to me, "Hey, as these films are banned in England, would you like me to send them in plain covers?" And I said, "Yes, please." I was really grateful, but it's embarrassing that, you know, the situation with the whole video nasty thing. It's ridiculous now when you look back on it. But you know, we've just got second sight release in Texas Chainsaw over here in 4K. I mean, you know, we used to pass pirated VHSs around in the school playground. You know, it was a naughty, rebellious thing to do. You know, have you seen this? And the quality, it'll be 10th umpteenth generation recorded, so the quality would be crap. But you know, you had something naughty and magical. But you know, people don't appreciate that unless you live that time. To now go to, I bought Second Sight 4K, which is mint. You know, you got the whole Dolby and everything. People just don't realise what a contrast it was. But even like the Last Hunter, you know, that was. Are you guys aware of what we had here, like the video nasty thing and okay. So there was different. Like, you had different lists, like Section 1, which was the real bad stuff. Section 2 and 3. So the Last Hunter was a Section 3 video nasty at one time, which sounds ridiculous now, right? But yeah. So and we've got Mausoleum coming up. We're working on that at the moment. That again, another Section 3 video nasty. But Yeah, it's my tastes are very varied. I love atmospheric films. You know, I like The Medusa Touch, Richard Burton, who I think is a great actor. You know, I like the others, like you know, like Dawn of the Dead, the original one, and I like the remake as well. I thought that was quite good.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, but yeah, my taste of it. Tom and I are both big horror fans, but we've got plans to do other things that aren't just horror. You know, and really it just comes down to the fact that do we like the film and do we think we could do a half decent job with it? You know, it could be comedy. Um, if we like it, we're not going to go down the line of you know, you've got to have a Spanish section or a Hong Kong section because, well, you sort of pigeonhole yourself into the fact that you will then release titles that you might not necessarily like, but you feel obliged to release, and plus the fact a lot of them have already been released anyway.
Yeah.
And companies have done a good job doing that. So, you know, it's really just, I don't know, if I can say a professional hobby, if that makes sense. You know, it's something born out of passion rather than the business.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want to lose money,
Of
but
course.
and that's a big thing because you know costs mount up. Whether you buy the licensing rights and then you have a new scan done. And the big bugbear for us is the BBFC. That really annoys us because, you know, you're talking to get a feature film class certified, it's about £1,000 over it. It's a lot of money. You know, it's a rip off, frankly. I was just talking about the BBFC, our beloved BBFC.
Oh yeah.
And because you guys have the MPAA over there, but
Yeah.
a lot of people like David Gregory from Severin, you know, he got so fed up with this, and he obviously in the States he doesn't have that trouble.
Because you can release things unrated over there with the most deluxe editions, and you can cram them full of features. And whereas over here, everything has to be rated.
Yeah.
Everything,
Wow.
even a moving menu has to be rated.
Yeah.
Huh.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that. I know. I've always been aware that on the cover of every single Blu-ray or DVD, there's always been the ratings plastered on the cover, which is a lot different than here. I mean, you wouldn't even know what our movies are rated because they're in very small print on the back
Back.
bottom of all of our releases.
I've noticed.
Whereas in the UK, everything is front and center, you know,
Well,
showing where it is.
it's funny because a lot of the boutique labels over here now are hiding them a lot more.
Mm.
Yeah.
So on the hard boxes and stuff like that, you just won't see them. You'd see one maybe that has to be shown in shops really and stuff like this. But I think they are just hiding them more so now. And
Yeah.
They're getting more creative,
like-
like, you know,
like-
Radiance.
They're making them smaller. I've noticed
that's
that.
it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that and like Radiance uses the strip that can be removed
Yes.
or flipped, or you know, sometimes they're putting them on the bottom,
Oh yeah,
or
Radiance.
sometimes they're putting them on the throwaway, you know, wrap that's on the
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
outside, and then it
yeah.
can be pulled off, and then
Well,
Yeah, 'cause that can be removed.
Yeah. Yeah, they see the 101s there, that's a sticker. And
yeah,
you won't see it on the spine either, so it's not on the spine.
yeah.
And then obviously there's one at the back because then I suppose that's the the legal requirements. But yeah, I think it's quite an outdated model now, really. I mean, especially now we're in the age of streaming as well, and a lot of people consume TV and film through streaming. And how is that being regulated? You know, it's just
It's probably not very much, and as it should
No.
be. It should be only regulated by the parents and the people that
Yeah,
are
the
deciding
adults.
to watch it. That's how it should be.
I guess.
exactly. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from putting a warning of the content of a film.
Sure,
on the
yeah.
case. But to pay this much money to get a little sticker on there telling you the age rating it's recommended to, or supposedly it's meant to be for.
Do you think that's more for like to cover retailers or for like retailers to way they can sell the movie to certain audiences and stuff like that?
Maybe.
I think it's a reason for them to make money.
Yeah, that
mean,
too. I think that's what I was saying.
yeah.
It's a business. I mean, I've got two kids. Well, they're all 17 and 15. But you know, I've always put it down to parental responsibility. You know,
Exactly.
I know. My daughter, she's fine with a Halloween film at 13, 14, even though it says 18. Now, I couldn't take her to the cinema, the theatre, to show it because she wouldn't pass for that age. But that's my decision to show it at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, £1,000, but it's too much. If it was £100 or £200, then fine. You could get it certified, and the viewer can be made aware of the content, and then they can make the decision whether to show it or not. But it's really hurting the physical media industry, certainly.
And let's face it, we all watched these films when we probably shouldn't have done, so so it kind of didn't work really.
As you mentioned the horror genre, a lot of the people we've interviewed were started off as horror fans, and a lot of them started off very, very young watching Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, when they were like 3-4 years old. And it's like it's that young,
Yeah. I mean, my parents would threaten us with saying, like, we'll put this film on for you and it's going to scare you that much. You won't want to watch another one. And obviously that backfired, really.
Give me more.
Yeah, severely.
My young 10-month-old is already watched like things that no kid that young should watch. Like just because she's in the room and I'm just like, I'm sorry, this is what you got to watch. You have to watch this. You have to watch this.
I think it's rather than warping people's minds, as the papers have tried to tell us in the past, it's actually like influencing creativity. It's inspiring. It's inspiring creativity. It's showing creativity. It's proactive. It's not. It's not damaging. It's.
Well,
there are certain films out there which might contradict that, but
well, I mean, obviously, there's certain things I don't want to necessarily show her, but it's like I think if you're talking about a real legitimate scarring of somebody when it comes to watching something like this on a film, I think it has to be repetitively watched for it to really have an effect. You know what I mean? Like if I show my daughter Nightmare on Elm Street, 5 times a day for the next month, yeah, it's gonna fuck her up probably. But not if she watches it in passing for one time. It's not torture or anything. We're not torturing our kids. But it's like you said, create. I think watching certain types of film can inspire creativity and curiosity more than anything. It'll make them curious, and they'll ask questions, and we can tell them this is just all make believe, and somebody made this up, and I know it's weird, and sometimes kids love things that, that you shouldn't be, just like us as adults, we can like something that you shouldn't be laughing at, or you're not, just because we're weird. People are weird.
I bring up American Psycho all the time. American Psycho is so ridiculously absurd in its violence that you sometimes cannot help but laugh at the absurdity in it, of how just ridiculous.
I was just as psychologically damaged by the Never-Ending Story than I was the Evil Dead, and they're both fantasies. That's
very true. Yeah. Very true.
Some things that are supposed to be for kids actually end up being pretty.
Oh yeah,
pretty weird.
I found that more I always used to find it disturbing how Jaws over here was a PG, and then you'd get like a knockoff like Piranha, which was like an 18, and I'm thinking, what's the difference here? Because Jaws is actually quite gory and quite terrifying. So what was the difference other than?
In fact, you've just reminded me. The only thing I've ever turned away, any time I've ever turned away from the screen, was when my mum took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, and so what was this? 83?
80, yeah,
something. I had been about 10 years old, and when they the whole scene where they're ready to finally open the ark and have the ceremony. And when the angels come out and the guy's face starts to really melt and stuff, even to this day, I can't believe that got passed as a PG.
No, it's insane.
So, I mean, they talk about video nasties and gores. You got a guy on fire, people exploding. The guy. I mean, it's not just a second. It's a whole 2 or 3 seconds and it's the only time I turned away.
Basically, Spielberg always gets a free pass. Really.
I was going to say it's Spielberg. That's why.
That's why. Ironically, it was.
If you did the same effects on a minuscule budget, then they'd give you an 18.
Yep.
Yeah. Ironically, it was the sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark: Temple of Doom, which created the PG-13 rating because it was so. I guess it pushed the envelope too much. Although you had PG films before then that you could argue were more gory, probably more gory than Temple of Doom. Maybe then PAA just finally had enough. Who knows? and they're like, "Hey, let's just create this PG-13 and
Yeah,
just whatever."
yeah. Which
I
then
know
went to 12 in the
Yeah,
UK.
yeah.
yeah, I was seeing PG-13 films when I was, of course, under 13, and I couldn't even like tell the difference between PG and PG-13. I was so young at the time. But I was even saying like there are some animated films which are always associated with young people, children that are traumatizing. A lot of the stuff that was done in the 80s, I think, is very traumatizing. Things like Land Before Time,
Yeah.
American Tail. Um, I even think of
The
All
plague
Dogs Go to
dogs.
Heaven. All those Don Bluth 80s animated films were just like traumatizing for
What was
children.
that? What was that one? Was it like My Little Toaster or something? Or what was that
Oh,
one?
Brave
Brave
Little
Little
Toaster?
Toaster. Yeah. The
Yeah,
Brave Little Toaster.
the one that was Toy Story before Toy Story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. With the
That my
where the
wife showed me that movie for the first time, and I was like, "This movie's fucked up."
yeah,
I
I
mean, it was
watched that
like,
when I was a little kid,
Well,
and
the
it
Plague
was
Dogs,
traumatizing.
I used to watch the Plague Dogs. I as an adult now, I refuse to watch the Plague Dogs and Watership Down.
Watership Down.
That can
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
just get out of my face as well.
I
Absolutely.
just watched Watership Down. I think for the podcast within the last 2 years for the first time. I don't know if BFI was putting it out or something because I
Well,
know
they
Criterion had
were
released
going to
it
put it
here.
out, and it got canceled. But
Oh, is that what happened?
Criterion put it out.
Well,
So
Criterion put it out way before then, and
yeah.
one year they aired it on TV for Easter, and it ended up traumatizing a bunch of kids here because they obviously whoever put it on didn't realize that it's Watership Down and not like Peter Cottontail or something,
Yeah,
and it's like the parents got all mad, and
yeah,
I'm
Oops.
like, I guess that's what happens.
yeah,
No, it's strange. It really is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, a bit of dark fantasy is really good for a kid's imagination, but you look at some of those films and you think, what were they thinking? You know?
Well, I think it was that they wanted to do what we're actually praising here, which is spark some creativity, make you think about what you're watching,
Yeah, and
and it's
it was a different time in cinema than
Hmm.
it is now. Things were commercialized, of course, as they always are, but now the commercialization of movies, especially geared towards certain demographics, is way more emphasized now than ever
yeah,
before. Like they purposely manufacture certain films to appeal to certain audiences
yeah.
to make money. I mean,
It's
it's
definitely
always been there, but now it's more obvious.
it's
Yeah,
more obvious, way more obvious.
but with
But
more whitewashing than ever before. Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. We got to have that. But it's let's get back into The Last Hunter, your release. Tell us about some of the work that was done, getting the deciding on like the packaging and the features, getting the features
Or
together. I'd like
even
to because
deciding on The Last Hunter, like why
yeah, because
specifically this movie.
yeah, because it's a fantastic package. I mean, you have tons of and I don't know how much of it was all produced by you guys. I know you produced some of the features. I know the big one that's on here, I believe, was already made prior by the filmmaker's son, I believe.
yeah. The outside of the
Yeah,
documentary. Well, yeah. Basically, when you start here, you certainly go up to the next level, and you think, well, I'm a collector, and I know what I like to see in a film and in a package, but then you've actually got to put that into practice. So you're sort of fumbling around trying to find out who owns the rights to what. And I actually, it was Jesse. I'll always big Jesse up because he's been a great help for Treasured Films. And obviously he's sort of a year or two ahead of us, and he's got the experience, and so he said, talk to these people in Italy. And I sort of got a list of avails. Was really surprised, as I said before, to find the Last Hunter available. And I liked it. And you start thinking, well, what can we do there for special features and essays and all this? Okay. So we managed to get the rights for 5 years, and then took a scan and a restoration, and that turned out to be mint. So I'm really pleased with that. So it wasn't cheap, but it's well worth it, I feel. Eugenio Eccoloni, have you spoke to him yet?
who?
Eugenio Eccoloni, he's an
No,
Italian guy. He produces a lot of the extras, Italian extras for the labels.
no, yeah,
You
okay.
should talk to him. he works for all the labels. He's a nice guy, very helpful, very professional.
Awesome.
Very prolific.
Yeah, very prolific. And so, I sort of had a meeting with him and said, look, I've got some ideas, because I sort of was thinking, I forget her name. Who's the lady in the Last Hunter, the photographer?
Teaser Farrow.
Thank you. I said, yeah, let's get her to do something, and we can call it Who's She, because that's the first line David Warbeck says when he meets her. And Eugenia said, Graeme, you have to stop here because she doesn't give interviews anymore. And so many people have tried to get her to do an interview. So you have all these great ideas, and they're certainly scuppered. But Eugenio came up with some great ideas. He said, look, we can speak to this person, that person. And I thought, great. And he said, oh, by the way, there's a documentary that's never had an English-friendly release called The Outsider. Would you be interested in that? I think it would go well with the film. And it's a great documentary. Again, it wasn't cheap, but it's great. And now I think Severin have picked it up for one of their releases, Margarita releases.
Yeah.
But yeah, it never had an English friendly release, so we picked it up and we did that. And then I asked people like Graham Humphreys, who does great art for a lot of these packages, would you be interested in this film? And he said, sure. I've never heard of it. What can I see? And so I sent it to him, and he said, great. It's got Bobby Rhodes in it. It's a great film. I love this film. So he produced some wonderful art. I was really chuffed with that. And then we got Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson to do the audio commentary, and they're great guys. They've been really helpful. And then the essays we did, sort of filmography or Italian filmography and David Warbeck, which I think is very comprehensive and complete now. So that should be a good point of reference for collectors.
I thought that was a nice touch that you did that, because I think that's how us as collectors sometimes collect, is we look at actors and we like this movie that we have, and then we're like, what else is similar to this, or what else is in that wheelhouse that relates to the actors or the filmmakers? And it's like, oh, well, here now you have a list right here in the booklet of like other films maybe that you'd be interested in. I thought that was a great touch doing that. So
and I actually asked John Martin, who's he's an author, and he works for the Dark Side magazine sometime over here. If he'd got anything historic with David Warbeck, so we can just, we can include it as a nice touch. And he got a nice archival interview we did with him, which I thought was really good. And it finishes off the booklet completely as a tribute to David. But it's it can be stressful at times when you're curating these things. It's money, and will this look good, and will that look good, and I guess to some extent you're led because not all releases are going to have this, because there's a reality of a commercial decision here. If you're putting so much money in, will you get the return back? Even just to cover your costs, let alone make money. So not a lot of the releases have that pedigree, that history, those materials available. So I mean, that's been a topic of discussion back and forth between Tom and myself about whether we're going to do the same for this release and that release. And some are more obvious that they'll lend themselves to that way, and some will be, we'll always do good packages, slips and booklets, but there won't be sort of the bells and whistles packages that The Last Hunter was. But I think Last Hunter's pretty good. I'm chuffed with it.
I mean, meeting Graeme, it was he made it clear from the start that he didn't want to fill his discs up with just filler. He wanted all these extras to be worthwhile, really. Because we are in an age now where consumers want more for their buck, but we don't want to just give them more for the sake of it. And we want the films to be able to dictate the package that they come with as well. And like Graeme said, The Last Hunter deserved a majestic kind of release because of all the history that surrounds Italian films around that time, and of the stars and the director, and of the type of film that it is. whereas other films might not necessarily require that sort of package.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, I mean that's and that's like you said, the filmmaker behind this film required the need to build it up more and have that support with everything included. And I do want to take a closer look at the booklet here. One of the main things that's always important about something like this is the material it's used to be made with. Very, very thick, kind of cardboard. It's not like it's not like a hardback book, but the booklet material itself, very thick outer pages. So it's not easily bent. It's really well done, guys.
Yeah, it's also
so
it is a 60-page book, so we're talking
Yeah.
legitimate
it's
Yeah.
pages here.
good stuff. A lot of
Mm.
writing material, not filled up with just. It's not a picture book.
Mm.
It's got a
It's
lot
not
of writing.
essays.
Got a lot of writing
You
material.
really
in
went
here.
in all guns blazing with that one, didn't you? Really?
Yeah. Thank you. It's the book's great, and it does have some great images in it as well.
Of course.
Yeah, but I think again, it's not that we can think we can do better than anybody. It's just what we want to see in the release, and I thought, well, I want to read something critical about the film. Give me some information. Give me some questions to think about. Give me some humour. That kind of that you think it's worth reading rather than worth plodding through. Because in my opinion, there's a lot of filler out there, and I guess it's a taste thing. But if I'm reading something or if I'm watching an interview being filmed, or somebody being filmed, I'm not interested in somebody telling me, "Oh, I remember it was a Wednesday and it was cold and it was raining." It doesn't relate to me. Tell me about the film. Let me appreciate it more. That kind of thing. So
Also, for a film like this, people may not be aware of it. Like I had never heard of it until you guys released it.
right,
So, like, I've only heard of this movie within the last couple of months. So to get all of the extra stuff around it to give the movie context, like the making of, like the people involved firsthand in the making of the movie or over in the movie, and then of course the essays in it reflecting on the movie, it creates this kind of, I don't want to be too snooty here, but saying this educational package presenting this movie in a way that it's probably never been presented before to people. Because when you look at it, if you just casually look up the film, oh, it's an Italian, Vietnam exploitation film from the early 80s. But that's really not, that's just a log line of what it is. It's not the entire picture. You have to put yourself in the context of the time. It's coming out in the post-Vietnam era, the post-Vietnam generation. It's coming out in the aftermath of the success of The Deer Hunter. So it's taking influence from that, but trying not to be as political, but also trying to be its own thing. But you can see the similarities to the point where wasn't the movie wasn't it almost got pitched like a sequel to The Deer Hunter or connected to The Deer Hunter, I think
yeah,
in Italy,
yeah,
and where they had the same Italian title for the film.
yeah. They had it, and it was going to be called Cacciatore 2. And they were basically told that if you do that, I think they had some posters made, but they were told if you go ahead with that, we're going to sue you.
Not a
So
surprise.
yeah, the influence are there. The Deer Hunter, great film. Apocalypse Now, great film. But I think what's interesting in looking at these things, you think, well, are they just Italian rips, or do they have something to offer, in their own merit? And I think they do. It's. I think it's a good film. It's an action film. It's got gore. You care about the characters, and it doesn't go on too long either. It's over. But
well, exploitation films have always opened their own discussions, haven't they?
Yeah,
and this is no different.
Yeah. And talking about content, unfortunately we lost John Steiner. Poor man, he died in a road car accident about 3 days before we were due to interview him. And we lost him. And poor man, I think he was in his 80s, but Eugenio had all the interview lined up, and so he phoned me and said, "Have you heard?" And I had by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the thing where he plays his part and sends one of his guys off to go and grab the coconut. I mean that's something that's seen, you know, and you have to avoid all these explosions and these bullets, but I want coconuts.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun scene. It really tells you about the psychological place that these people were in during the war. I mean, even though this is an exploitation film, some of that stuff is real stuff. Like people needed to find ways to, get by with the time, deal with their surroundings, being in such high pressure situations. They put themselves in high pressure situations to have fun, and I'm sure, we know there's a lot of horror stories from our time over there, bad things that happened.
Sure.
So other than the normal, just the war itself, but like it shows you the mindset of people that were there. And I think what's interesting about Italian kind of rip, if you want to call it that, movies, if you want to consider this one of them, is that, like you said, you're looking at another culture, looking at our, another culture, and then putting their outsider spin on the situation. So it really creates a new kind of thing. I mean, it's not straight from the horse's mouth. It's
well, look what they did with the Western.
Exactly. The spaghetti Western changed the genre as we know it, and became one of the most popular, I think, Western genres, is the spaghetti Western. Other than the when people talk about Westerns, they don't typically like to go back and say, oh, John Wayne movies are my favorite. It's mostly they like the Clint Eastwood movies. They like, they like that more harder edge stuff compared, so yeah, there's a lot of examples where the Italian kind of rip-off versions end up being the more popular versions of that genre. So yeah, I mean,
in a way, because they're slicker, more easily digestible. Like if you compare this, to Apocalypse Now, completely different, tonally different films.
I think the exciting part of it is just there's a lot of them are just so morally dubious. You don't know where they're sat morally, and that creates for more exciting viewing. You're not quite sure what the perspective is, and that again opens further discussion, but you just really don't know where they're coming from sometimes, other than just giving you the ingredients to a film that they think that you want,
Yeah. And sometimes I think it's like an unabashed, like maybe in a sense, for a better word, an ignorance too, because maybe some of the things that the original movie would have stayed away from because of maybe hoping somebody wouldn't get upset about it, they don't care because it's not maybe their problem. It's not their, so they. Excuse me, I got snot going down my throat right now. I've been sick.
You didn't have to say that, but okay.
Yeah, I know. My bad. But yeah, it's we're being honest in here. I didn't want you guys to think I was just going to start coughing on the air.
Don't you go?
But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things too, is there's this somewhat of an ignorance, because it's like they, whatever problems the original filmmakers had, they don't have them same.
So they really did not give a fuck most of the time, the Italians. That's why we love the film so much. They're just so in your face.
Yeah, they're police films. They're policia films that they're some of that shit's hardcore. You're like, he just killed all them people. Like they wouldn't have done that in American cinema. They wouldn't have killed a group of people. On screen and showed it, and yeah. So it's definitely an important genre that I think you're seeing a lot more labels exploiting that genre a little bit more.
Oh yeah,
Arrows put out a lot of
Italian like westerns, spaghetti westerns that aren't Sergio Leone. A lot of other ones that probably people haven't seen or aren't aware of, and if they are, they haven't been in great condition, for people to be seeing, or whatever the case may be.
Some of those are masterpieces as well. It's just.
How was the condition of The Last Hunter when you guys first got the initial materials? Did it need an extensive restoration?
Well, to be honest, we don't know, because when we did the license deal, we were given the option: do you just want a scan as it is, or do you want a scan and a restoration? And I thought, well, nowadays to really be taken seriously, I guess, if you want to put it that way, you really, if you've got money, if it goes anywhere, it's got to go into the film itself, right? before you start thinking about extras and packaging and all this, because there's no point putting out a fancy edition if the master's crap. So that's I just said right from the start. The only decision I had to make was, did I want a 2K restoration or a 4K? And honestly, I couldn't afford a 4K. This is how tight things were. But then we've discussed this since. I mean, it looks great, and
It does.
that then raises the question: well, does a film necessarily need a 4K if you're not going to release it on UHD? You know, and you know, I mean, I like 4K UHD. I have some films, and some of that works better on more different films than others. But I don't know. I don't regret not doing that. You know, I think the film looks. I think it looks, without wishing to sound too immodest, the best it's ever looked. You know, and I think with the packaging and everything, I think it'll take something to beat that. To be honest. But yeah, again, it all comes down to the passion. You know, put where you're going to put your money, taking your time on getting it right, curating, and rather than knock out a plethora of films every month, you know, you want to make sure you do it properly. You're satisfied. You've QC'd it, which
Yeah.
seems to
Oh, that's very important. Yeah.
be an issue for some labels at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, because the moment I say that, we'll release something bad. But you know, you've got to just take your time. Don't feel under pressure getting these out. You know, we've just finished the master on our next release, which is Jeff Lieberman's Satan's Little Helper. And we've got a nice slip and a nice booklet for that. And again, we just took our time, go back and forth between different people and say, yeah, we like this. Can you change that? You know, and just enjoy it. You know, it shouldn't be a pressurizing product to have a business. It should be something that you put your heart and soul in, if that doesn't sound too pretentious.
Of course not. No. Please tell us a little bit more about Santa's Little Helper and why that was chosen as your next release, if you can.
Well, you know, we put so much thought into our next title, didn't we, Tom? And no, actually, we again, this is inexperience. I'd always assumed it'd be another Italian film, but then Jesse from Diabolic said, "Look, Jeff Lieberman's looking for a UK distributor. Would you be interested in?" I knew of Jeff Lieberman, of course, but I didn't know of that film. So I watched it and I thought, hey, this is really great. You know, it's got that Jeff Lieberman sort of twist and the humor and the darkness. And I thought, yeah, I like this. And I was emailing Jeff, and he's a nice guy. He's been really supportive. And so we worked out a deal then. And I said to him, look, I haven't got a lot of money. Would you consider this? And he said, yeah. So we went to that. So, but we're really pleased with that. But again, that was opportunity. It wasn't something we sat down and planned. You know, there's no schedule. We haven't got a year's worth of titles that we're going to release this in June, this in August. You know, it doesn't work like that. We have got some films that we've signed up for, so we know roughly what the next schedule is going to be. But yeah, Satan's Little Helper is a great little film.
It all goes back to that sourcing the extras thing. So you sometimes look at your two titles and you think, right, well, we're nearly finished on this chunk here, but then this one's starting to take precedent now. So they're kind of racing to the bite, and then you have to sit back and think, right, it's probably best that we put this one out next.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a timetable thing that you can't. You're like, well, shit. We only signed up for 5 years. We need to make sure we get this one done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the time is ticking as well. So yeah, you've got to take that into consideration.
Definitely. Yeah. So, getting close to wrapping this up, we did talk a little bit about your collecting. Please, you talk about having a video store. So that's kind of cheating. You know, you have a whole store. That makes you like the super collector. But tell us like where you are with how you collect and are you blind buyers? Are you you only kind of pick things that you're familiar with? What's the habits like?
Tom, over to you.
Well, I think, back in the day, I was a complete blind buyer. Everything I could see on VHS that had a painted cover and looked enticing enough, that was a horror film or whatever. And obviously, as life gets busier, you don't get to watch as much. But then physical media is alive more than ever. So, as Graeme mentioned earlier, the watch pile just gets higher and higher, and the editions become better and better. But you do find yourself going down little avenues, and I'm speaking as a filmmaker, so like different waves of inspiration come over me. So there's one, for a while I could just be obsessed with silent films, so then that's all I'll collect and watch. But then I'll get the bug back for my Hammer horror films again, for instance. So I'll start watching and collecting Hammer horror. And I think we all just fall down these little rabbit holes now and again where we just kind of focus on. I'm not particularly a label collector per se, because I know that a lot of people these days are label collectors. You see all their Vinegar Syndromes lined up together with the slips, and don't get me wrong, they look absolutely beautiful. But then you find that a lot of these people watch these Vinegar Syndrome releases and think, wow, that was an awful film. Who wants to buy this off of me? Because they buy it because they want to trust in the label. And we've said this previously as well. A lot of people do put their trust in labels. And that's something we've got to formulate ourselves now, really. And I think by releasing Satan's Little Helper next, we're showing that we're not pigeonholed to one type of film.
Exactly.
And that reflects our collecting the way we collect films as well, So
yeah,
absolutely. It's I've been a collector, as I say, for many, many years, and I did used to be a fanboy of certain labels, but then you have to keep reminding yourself it's about the film. Okay, the film comes first before anything else, before the label, and it makes me laugh sometimes when a label announces something and you get all these entitled, angry people that, I don't like this film. Why are you releasing it? And you just think, well, hey, we've all got different tastes. It's fine. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Move on. Nobody's forcing you to buy this movie. But yeah, as Tom said, the problem is with the to watch pile. I've got so much, and when you come home from work, you look at it and you think, I've got to get through this. Not what can I watch next? Great. It's just a stress. And my kids even tease me and say, look, Dad, you've only started this business so you can buy more tiles at wholesale prices.
That's what I get told. That's what I get told about the podcast. Is I only started the podcast so that it gives me a reason to like collect more, or even get some like free copies from some of these labels for review. It's the only reason I started this podcast.
Yeah, clearly, clearly.
Yeah.
Not for the love of the game. Clearly, what's interesting is that you mentioned that there are a lot of people who are very gatekeepy when it comes to certain labels can only release certain types of movies, or that's not what they typically release. What are they doing? And it's like, just wait. They're gonna release something else tomorrow, or you know what I mean. Like the next month, there's gonna be a whole new wave of movies, or there's gonna be another company in a couple of days that's going to announce their stuff. That's the way it's going right now. Really,
it's learning that we're tapping into something that people are extremely passionate about, and passion does breed certain peculiar behaviours sometimes. And we're learning that just by doing what we do, really.
Look, I've had emails from people saying, why are you using this critic? I don't like them. It's like, oh, okay, mate, I'll not use this guy because, I've got to produce 2,000 copies, but because you don't like it, I won't use this critic or this person. It's like,
you can't satisfy
it's petty,
everyone.
Man. It's petty.
Yeah, you can never really satisfy everyone. So you get to the point where you're just trying to make the best product you can, or the best release you can.
Yeah.
Regardless, like you said, it does all start with the movie, and not every movie is for everyone. Movies are as subjective as you can get. So that's going to already turn people off or turn people on based off of that basic fact.
Yeah.
And the idea that a certain label has to be locked into certain things, I think is kind of silly, because I don't like to box things into certain things, because it's too oppressive, and movies shouldn't be oppressive in any way. Movies should be open and free in its expression, in everything, in all of its aspects. It really shouldn't put those things in boxes. Granted, certain labels do release certain types of movies. That's their
Well,
thing,
I think some people that start labels feel the need to
Yeah,
fill a hole, so that they decide that they're only gonna put out a certain type of film, and they think that will help fill a niche in the market.
yeah, but I don't
When
think
honestly, the really, I think the identity of a label should just be organic. I don't feel
yeah,
that
like
you
if
have
you
to
like
necessarily,
we've brought up
you know.
we've brought up Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome for years was putting out very, very niche, horror films that no one's really heard of or hasn't seen the light of day since the VHS era. And then now they're putting out things like Showgirls
Yeah.
and Roadhouse.
There
And
you go.
it's and then so they're not allowed to do that because they started out the other way. No, they can do whatever they want. They're a company, you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. Exactly.
I think yeah, you have to come into this game with a certain philosophy, but then the wind takes you sometimes is they're down different avenues where you think actually why not, and that looks like what happened with the likes of Vinegar Syndrome releasing films that you wouldn't expect from them, but it's just all in additions that people. I'm guessing because a lot of studios don't really care for this physical media game. So, the likes of Vinegar Syndrome will put that film out for them, but,
Yeah.
in addition that everyone wants to see. So it's all down to like the love, isn't it?
Yeah, you're seeing. I mean, I know me and Andrew are going to talk about this in a couple days, but just you see, like Criterion's now, opened up to Janus Films doing this contemporary line now, so that you're seeing that there's a need where they see, because they've been doing a lot of restructuring over there, to make sure that they're being more current, so they're like getting into more contemporary films instead of being kind of that label that's labeled as classic films and foreign films, and like they're trying to stay as relevant as possible by
Yeah.
opening up their catalog to a lot more movies.
It's
So
very
it's
interesting because they've kind of been beaten at their own game in many respects by a lot of these
Yeah.
other fledgling labels. But these are also labels, again, going back to that area of snobbery that we were talking about, people that turn their noses up at genre pieces.
Yeah.
These are the genre labels that are now also releasing the classics as well, so they're just showing how robust they are in their tastes. Whereas Criterion, they've always kind of thought, well, they're not going to touch this and that and the other. But they've also been beaten on packaging and extras. And they were the label at one point, weren't they? They were like the label that I could never afford to buy.
Yeah, I mean, everybody still buys, I think, a lot of their stuff through their sales, as long as they keep happening. But I agree with you. I think I think they sensed that there needed to be some change, and I think unfortunately
Yeah.
people lost their jobs during that change. But
Right, and they've been trying to make waves by putting out more contemporary movies. Like you've seen them put out,
One
like
False Move and like
Triangle of Sadness.
yeah,
well,
even really current films like that. Yeah,
I was gonna say even like The Irishman, Martin Scorsese stuff. Get the name recognition, Martin Scorsese plus the contemporary movie.
Wally, Wally.
I mean, Wally,
yeah,
literally Disney. It's like they've been trying to make that push to stick with their catalog stuff, but put out some modern stuff. Then now teaming up with Janus to put out kind of modern, like indie stuff that you would see at film festivals and things like that,
yeah.
or stuff that's streaming on their platform, the Criterion channel, to get more eyes on there. And you know what I mean? It is all about a balancing when it comes to right now. I think physical media plus the streaming world is in a crossroads. Is at a crossroads right now where streaming is changing quick right now. The bubble has shrunk. The platforms are changing. Networks and big time studios aren't making the money they thought they were going to make. So now things are shifting
Now they're making sure they put ads on everything.
where physical media is becoming more relevant, because you just saw today, today as when we're recording this, Disney is shrinking down. Disney, the ultimate big time corporate machine, Disney is not immune to this. They're going to shrink down, and they're going to be taking content off of their platform.
Yeah.
That content, where's it going to go? Is it going to be on someplace else?
Well, probably
But
again, won't it?
yeah, but if you have the physical media version of it, of the movie, TV show, whatever it is, you're good. They can't take it from you.
And it doesn't take up space on their servers.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean? Like
we saw that with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, another big time century old studio, getting rid of their content on their streaming platforms. So it's everything's kind of at a crossroads right now. So we're seeing that the boutique labels that have been around for several years are kind of keeping a lot of the movies around, and now the bigger companies may have to turn back to physical media to
Mhm.
preserve their catalogs, really, because they don't know what to do with them because they've kind of exhausted, I guess, the money making when it comes to streaming.
It would be interesting to see what happens with Warner's, because they are particularly picky about. Well, they won't even sub-license their films, will they?
We tried to get Blue Sunshine because you know 4K, and Jeff Lieberman said, look, if you can get it, then we can do a deal probably. But I mean, they're just, you email, you tweet, you Facebook message, they don't come back to you.
And they've got their archive collection, which again, a lot of that's print on demand. I'm guessing
it's bare bones,
if people make enough noise, and they release a nice Blu-ray on an archive edition. But for the most part, these films are locked away, and it's like, well, what are you guys going to do with these films?
Yeah. I've heard about that for years, like over a decade. I've heard that Warner Brothers is the most one of the more difficult main studios to get to license out to other studios.
Mm.
Some you can tell are just do it willy nilly. Like Sony with their Columbia stuff, Universal with their back catalog. You see those licenses get tossed around all of the time. But Warner Brothers, I guess, want to do everything in house, really, and just not sharing at all.
I mean, I can respect that, and to the point where if you're not putting it out, then what are you doing?
What's the point?
You're just holding it hostage for nobody to get.
That's why, when we started this podcast was right around the time when we thought Warner Archive was going to not exist anymore. So it's like, okay, we're not going to have access to Warner Brothers catalog, their rich 100-year catalog. But obviously 2 years later, and they're still putting out their Blu-rays, which look immaculate. Whatever they're doing with Warner Archive releases, don't stop, because they look incredible with their 4K and 2K restorations and all that. I just hope it doesn't fold anytime soon. But you never know with them, the way they're structuring right now. They're trying to save money any way they can. It's all a money game.
Yeah.
But based off of what you're telling me, seems like we need to get you on our other show, the Unwatched Pile. Because we do have another show where we all make a decision to pick one movie out of our Unwatched Pile stack and then talk about it and then pair it with something else in our collection that we've already seen as a fun like double feature thing. So we might have to bring you back to do that show so that we can help you with your pile.
Thank you.
That'd be a pleasure.
Well, we need help. We desperately need help.
Oh yes, we need help with our piles.
But I appreciate you guys coming on to talk with us. I appreciate that. Though you're in this you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Backwoods. You were right the first time.
Backwoods.
He almost didn't want to say that because he probably thought it was going to sound insulting.
Is it woods? Is it backwoods? Are they the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? No.
Yeah. Can you see my 6 fingers?
Yes. But no, I appreciate that even though you're out there where it's not an easy place to do this, that your passion's pushing you forward to put out great physical media. And like I said, once again, great first release from Treasured Films, The Last Hunter. Well worth a pickup, guys.
Yeah.
Especially if you're into this type of genre, if you're into exploitation stuff, 80s cinema. Yeah, it's a really good release, and please keep an eye on them. They got more coming soon.
Yeah, for those of you listening, you can probably find it on Diabolic, Orbit DVD, maybe Grindhouse has it. Grindhouse Video maybe has it. I know there was another website that if you go to your guys' website, which is treasuredfilms.co.uk, you guys tell us where to go to get it, because I know you guys can only ship within the UK.
That's right. We can only ship within the UK. That's right.
Yeah. So please keep an.
But,
yeah.
If American retailers get their hands on some copies, that's nothing to do with this.
We don't have nothing. Yeah. but yeah, please keep an eye on them. Keep up. I have a feeling, I can't say this for sure, but we do the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards. Maybe you guys would be up for a best new label. Hopefully next year. That would be nice. I'd like to see you pop up again. So that'd be nice. So we'll see how it goes.
And thank you for your time, guys, and your early
of course.
Start. Appreciate it.
No, at any time, man. We'll do this again.
Sure.
But have a good rest of your day, guys, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Stephen. Thank you, Andrew.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And we're back. Hello. Hi. Andrew, are you
Good.
with me?
Yeah, you are back.
He was like
We're
reading
back.
something.
Well, I was trying to find the geographic location that they specifically mentioned in the interview that you just listened to, but it
I'm
is
sure
very
we
much in the
mentioned it in the interview.
yeah,
So
many times. But it is very much like the heart of Great Britain and kind of like very industrialized towns. And we got into kind of like how the society there is very, you know, blue collar working people. It reminds me a lot of like, coal mining country
I was
when
gonna
it
say it's
comes
like
to
Madawan.
yeah, like yeah, in that movie. But also, I'm just for some reason I think they just celebrated something to do with the full Monty,
Mm,
and I just remember the full Monty being about coal mining striking
yeah.
and workers' rights and stuff like that. And it just reminded me about the Treasured Film guys and where they're from and all that kind of stuff. I think yeah, 'cause I think the full Monty got a TV series and they just launched it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's been going on. But yeah, it was really great to talk with them. Like we said, they do have technically, I guess, two releases by this point, um, and and they do have a lot of other things kind of in the works from what we gathered from the interview that we did.
But they're basically a two-man team, so please give them support if you're, into the films that they got released, and please, go buy direct. That's always the best way. And it really helps them out. And all right, well, let's move on to I guess what we do here, which is Blu-ray announcements. We pick some topics, what stuff that interests us through the week, and because we don't cover everything, guys. If you've never listened to the show before,
Right.
we don't cover everything, but we cover what interests us. And before we get into some Blu-rays, we do have a few kind of tidbits of news, some stuff we missed out on maybe last week. Where should we start? The stuff about
I do
network?
want to yeah. Let's start with the sad news.
Yeah,
Is that the British company? Oh, what do they call network? Who have been putting out physical media Blu-rays for a rather long time, is I think closing up shop.
yeah, yeah. It's anytime, of course, there's tons of Blu-ray boutique labels out there, and we seem to get new ones all the time, but this is one that has kind of been around and I've kind of been a pioneer for a while, and it's always sad to see ones kind of drop off, and I guess it's just the unfortunate nature of the beast of business. This we love all this stuff and what they do, and we sometimes forget that it's a business and that sometimes businesses don't work out. And
Yeah,
yeah,
very true. And we've covered some of their um like new release slates, I think, since we've started here. And it looks like yeah, they still have a couple of things they've got to put out. But I think that's probably gonna be it for them, at least from what I can see. They have like a couple of things they put out in May and then one thing that's coming out in June. And, and that looks like about it. And I remember Network being a prominent name when I was looking to start importing titles from the UK, like over a decade ago, when I was
yeah,
trying to go like region free and all that kind of stuff, or when I was trying to find, hey, there's no Blu-ray release here in the US for this movie. Is it overseas? Sometimes Network would have it, and I just remember them being a very early, company that I was made aware of. So it's really unfortunate that they're kind of disappearing. I mean, I think a lot of their stuff now is probably gonna be quite valuable on the
yeah,
reselling market. That's just the way these things kinda go, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I it's sad because we do see some, studios, some companies do kind of go the way of extinction. I mean, I mentioned Olive Films so many times here. They've seemed to have gone away completely. They don't really exist anymore. All of their licensing stuff has kind of lapsed, and you see other companies pick up the licensing for a lot of the movies that they put out and whatnot. So it happens. There is a business side to all of this that
yeah,
we don't really talk about a huge amount of, but it is part of it all.
yeah, yeah. And it's some people just have more resources and just, I think one of the thing about network is that I think they're just, like I said, kind of a pioneer company. They paved the way for a lot of these other companies, and did things and tried things, that kind of helped some of these prominent companies now understand what they needed to do to be successful. And that's just how it is sometimes. Sometimes you're at the forefront and you stay at the forefront, and sometimes you're there at the beginning, and you don't quite, it doesn't, some people just kind of lap you and get ahead of you, and when it comes to business. And it's unfortunate. I hate to see a company that put out some really interesting releases kind of fall to the wayside. But um, they got a lot of stuff out there. I'm sure they'll still be available to find in some way for until they become way too expensive on eBay. But um, you know, we'll see. Well, I'm sure the licensing of some of the films will actually become free to other labels eventually, um, and that we might see some of the films that they put out go elsewhere. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that seems to be the way they're going. I was just checking their website. The website's completely gone now and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically whatever's in the hands of sellers and retailers is what's available.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
was just checking out their Twitter and stuff and whatnot. But yeah,
But
they were home for a lot of like older like television series on DVD and Blu-ray, which is what I really really love, and then a lot of old stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, I would say also the market has shifted greatly as well. Before we get into the
mhm.
newer stuff that's been coming out, but I think there's so many more companies now, and there's so much more out there that people have to figure out where to spend their money.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Steven?
if there's such a wide landscape of labels. It's people can only spend money so many places. And yeah, it's if you're not necessarily catching people's eye with your releases, or your marketing strategy isn't really working for people, or you know it's just, that's just how it is. That's how it is with any business. So um
Speaking of which,
yeah.
we've got some things to go over here. It's a very, very quiet week. It is the technically this
we do
first week of
we
June.
do have a
It's kind
couple
of
other
week and a half.
tidbits though.
We do have a couple other tidbits in speaking of the industry.
Well,
Before we get into the slow week,
yeah, yeah.
um,
We do have that news about the censorship of one of
yes,
the best picture winners of all, and one of the best. You could say one of the best movies ever made, The French Connection. Man, I mean, it's been some editing on it. Took out a line. Uh, I understand that the line is offensive, but censorship's not good,
yeah,
guys.
it's a dialogue line exchange between Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider in the film, and it's I think yeah, it's racially prejudicial,
Yeah,
offensive and stuff like.
yes.
To be honest, you're gonna find that in a lot of movies. It's new, especially in 1970s. That grit and that culture back then. Of course, it's going to be there. The cachet and the whole extra wrinkles behind all this is that the movie is now in the hands of Disney, and
Yeah,
Disney doesn't probably want to put that on their streaming service or something like that with that type of language, with that type of content. And I'm like, if you're going to absorb or go out and get content from other companies that have been making movies for decades, chances are there's going to be stuff in there that is not going to be part of your brand, you
yeah,
know? Um, I think the better way to go about it is if you want to put a warning before the movie. I know a lot of companies do that. Or if you want to put it on a streaming service that is more open to people of all ages. I mean, you're Disney.
yeah,
You have endless resources to do that. What sucks is that apparently this is now the only way to see the movie streaming anywhere. I believe it's this cut that's missing these lines or missing this sequence within this scene are is what's available on other streaming places where you can rent the movie or buy the movie online. I think it's the way they're going to be exhibiting it in the theaters. I heard when they show it at like repertory screenings and whatnot, that's going to be part of whatever version they get. Um, So the only kind of uncut version of the French Connection is on the old DVDs and Blu-rays. So once again, physical media saves the day
Mm.
when it comes to preserving the original version of these movies, the unedited versions of certain movies. Um, it it's interesting how this just keeps happening.
Well, what I don't think they understand, for they don't understand a few things. First of all, when you take something like this out of the movie, you actually kind of do the opposite thing. You're bringing attention to it. Uh, now people are going to look for this thing, and you know,
Well, it also sticks out like a sore thumb. If you can see the clip online, you can
yeah,
if you go to Twitter, if you go to YouTube, you can see the edited clip, and it sticks out like a sore thumb because it looks like it goes from like in the middle of a conversation between two people. It'd be as if Steven and I were talking right now, and all of a sudden it jumps to us doing something else
yeah,
completely.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And there's a gap in dialogue and there's a gap in footage. So it looks like there are frames missing, which
yeah.
there literally are. Um,
Honestly,
it's it it's
honestly,
mind-boggling.
it is, and honestly, there is no good thing about. I mean, like, censoring is always going to be a bad thing. We're never going to condone it. And look, we don't condone using the word that's used in this sequence here. But when we censor things, we're also trying to pretend them things don't happen, and that people don't say them things, and that's not how we progress as a society. Censoring things only makes us. It's like living a lie. Like, that's not how the world is. The world is dirty, and there's
Mm,
bad people in it, and there's people that
right.
say bad things, and we can't censor all that stuff, or because there's no way that the world can be perfect in a utopia. It's just not real. And so, you know it's just not right. It's not right to try to have this fictitious glance at our art and our world, because that's just not reality. You're going to meet people. Everybody's going to meet people in their life that are ignorant and are going to
Right.
say things that are wrong. And on top of that, just as the character in the movie, that's who the character is in the movie. Like, that's who he is. That now you're taking out of his character by cutting that. Like, it's
Yeah, and not only
you
that,
know
but yeah, it's part of the character, it's part of that world, it's part of the culture of the time
yeah,
in which the film is made, and while obviously it's terrible, people shouldn't talk like that, it is unfortunately the way people talked at that time. It's honestly, it's the way in which people still talk
some
now.
people talk
We
that
haven't
way
really
now.
come
Yeah,
that far,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And it's good to have that documentation. Granted, it's a fictitious film and all that kind of stuff and whatnot, but like I've said, movies are often a reflection of the time in which they're made, and it's something you can see. Hey, this movie that came out in the early '70s, and today people are still saying that. Why are we cutting it out in the '70s if we're not going to be cutting it out today? And you can make all kinds of cultural arguments, all that kind of stuff like that, and then you can expand this whole censorship idea that Steven's talking about to a lot of other things that people are trying to censor now when it comes to banning books or
yeah,
banning certain things you can and cannot teach in school. To me, I think any restriction of knowledge, whether it be good or bad knowledge in its content, in its context, is a bad thing, really. You know what I mean? It's kind of what
yeah.
Steven's saying. You can't erase the past. You can only acknowledge its existence and kind of learn from it. Unfortunately, people don't seem to want to do either of that.
No,
They don't seem to want
they
to
don't pretend it didn't
acknowledge it
happen. Yeah,
or they or learn from it and change from it, and that's kind of why our society does live in a state of arrested development when it comes to many different things.
yeah,
You know what I mean? We don't address our problems. We kind of just like move on from them and then they still exist and then they come back again.
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's a cycle, you
society
know?
needs a therapy session, like
Really, it
yesterday.
does. It needs to figure things out, or else we're just going to keep making the same mistakes over and over
Yeah.
again. And I think the same is kind of with movies, where we're going back to censor these films um, unnecessarily. Really,
I mean,
I
I mean,
mean,
look,
if you don't want to watch a certain film for whatever the context, people, directors that are made the movies, or people that are in it, or the content of the movie, you don't have to. That's kind of the beauty of entertainment. You
sure.
don't have to do it. You know,
Honestly, I would much rather them. Of course, like we've said about a lot of things, just give us options. Like if you want to,
mm,
if you want to put out put the uncensored version out, which is the our normal version, and then give us if you want to make an option at the beginning of viewing of like the censored version. And honestly, my change of this, I wouldn't want them to cut the scene, but do what they did for TV for many years. Just overdub it with another word.
really.
Make them
Oh,
say a
those are
different
funny
word,
huh?
huh?
Yeah. Those are hilarious though, when they would
And
put,
it
like
can be
they
funny. You
put,
could
like,
have it.
Scarface on TNT and stuff.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
yeah. Just change. I mean, it's essentially one word that needs to be changed in this sentence. Just change the word, censor it. It'll be funny for some people, and it'll help people not have to hear that word. Just change the word.
Not even I still think what Warner Brothers does with their old Looney Tunes cartoons that have racially insensitive, horrific things in them, especially the stuff that they made like during World War II when it came to making fun of Japanese and of course all the racism in there and whatnot. Put the warning before the thing even starts.
Sure.
I know that still pisses people off, but it's like, something. At least it's something. Not, it not pisses people off in the sense that, that the content's in it, but it pisses people off when they get warnings about it, 'cause that people will say, "Oh, people are so sensitive when it comes to these things," and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, you gotta acknowledge, that the content is bad. That's just acknowledging that it's bad, and you may wanna know that it's bad.
Yeah.
But I like that they do that for that. I like that Disney, we just kind of crapping on them for doing the censor, but they do. I believe they put that before a lot of their older Disney films, specifically Disney's Dumbo, where it
Yeah.
has those incredibly racist crows at the end of Dumbo. They always put a warning before that movie. Now I think that's streaming on Disney Plus and whatnot. But censoring things and then just not telling people also kind of bothers me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd like to hear more about this from William Freakton.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to know if he what he thinks about this whole situation. But I'm sure we might hear something about it soon.
We may hear
Yeah.
from him. I mean, I was telling Steven beforehand, I saw a random tweet or a random Instagram post where apparently this may or may not have been done by William Friedkin himself. Um, so who
It would
knows?
surprise the fuck out of me.
Um, I probably should follow up and maybe Google to see if that's actually true, but I'm not quite sure. But I'm just saying that that's what someone said. Doesn't mean it's true or not.
Yeah.
Until Friedkin says it himself, obviously I wouldn't trust that. But yeah, especially going back to censoring movies from 45, 50 years ago. Man, that's interesting. And the thing is, like, we talked about that a lot here. We're going back to changing movies, but usually the directors and people go back to change the movies because they want to get a different cut of the story, or they want to get a different color palette, or sometimes change aspect ratios, or something like that. This is more like this is the bad part of doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
Like,
changing
this
the
doesn't have really artistic merit. This is
you,
just kind of straight up censorship.
yeah, you're changing the complexity of a scene, you're changing the complexity of a character. Like it's legitimately changing something about the movie that's important, really important, like essential. Even though it's
I
gross.
wouldn't I wouldn't say yeah, kind of.
I mean, it is. It tells a lot about the character that he would use that word.
Well, yeah, it is also it is also kind of apropos just for the time in which, like I
Yeah,
said, the time in which the movie was made and the way people talked, and it just shows you that that character is not a good person, and that is the thing with a lot of films from that 70s thing, gray characters, you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, really gray characters with questionable morals,
yeah,
and it gets to the point where, like, are we supposed to root for this person? Are we not supposed to root for them? Are they the protagonist? Are they not really? And, I think as we've gone along, especially nowadays, people like things to be more black and white, more concrete. Like, if that person's a good guy, he's got to be entirely good. If that person's a bad guy, it's got to be entirely bad. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people view movies like that today. That's like when I see a lot of people who watch movies and they say, like, I didn't like this movie because I couldn't root for anyone. And I'm like, maybe you weren't supposed to root for someone. Maybe the movie was more than just rooting for a character to win.
or
Maybe
or
it
or
was
that
more
or
about
that you
other things.
or that you didn't having a
relate to someone.
relate to somebody in the movie, and it's like, well, maybe that's not what it's for. It maybe it's but
Yeah.
or maybe that the movie made you feel bad. It's like, well, maybe
Or
that was
maybe
the
yeah,
point.
I just always think like your ability to relate to a film doesn't necessarily dictate the quality of the film.
Exactly.
I mean, it'll dictate obviously your enjoyment of it. You know what I mean? If you're not able to engage
If
with the
that's why
film
it,
on a
it, it
certain
it only
level.
dictates your enjoyment of it if that's
Yeah.
why you're going to watch the movie to relate to something. It's not it shouldn't be it should I mean, if that's what you want, fine, but honestly, you should go into a movie basically as open-minded as possible. That's why I kind of stay away from trailers as much as possible.
Mm.
But it's
Trailers do dupe you. They
they
do get you.
can, but it's you know it, to end this, to put a button on this, we both, I think we all can agree that censorship's bad, and that fighting the good fight on something like this is not condoning the thing that was done, that was censored. It's just, if we say it's okay to do one thing, it's just going to get worse. Like, they're only going to keep doing it, and it's going to get worse and worse. So you got to say no to it. Like, it's just a no. Some it's something that just can't, the line can't be crossed, and people can't be okay with it. Like, it's not. So they're only going to keep doing it. So we got to keep fighting the good fight and say,
And in the age of the streaming world and in the age of the digital world, it is very, very easy for the companies to go in and
yeah,
manipulate things. That's another thing with digital filmmaking, the digital world, and streaming services. You can go in and edit something and then put it right back up on the streaming platform, and then there you go. I mean, Disney's been doing this for years with a lot of their stuff on Disney Plus. I mean, in Splash, they covered up some Daryl Hannah brief nudity with her with like a CGI uh bikini and stuff like that and
yeah,
whatnot. And yeah, obviously like that they wanted to do that because I guess because of their audience and stuff, but it's like the movie's been around for 30 something years, 40 something, almost 40 years. It's not gonna you're not gonna destroy any minds by certain things that you're covering
you
up.
also got to put,
Our society is a we live in a rough world, man.
it's a
If
coddled, but
that's gonna traumatize you, man.
we're over here trying to coddle everybody's emotional state and minds. Like,
Well,
um,
yeah, there are certain things. Yeah, we've talked about people having traumatic reactions to things and whatnot. There are certain things that are put in film that I think people need to be aware of before they watch a movie. You know what I mean? Sexual violence,
I think that
gore.
that's true, but I think a problem with our society these days is people don't take enough responsibility. They assume that everything's going to be okay, with everything that they watch or consume. Um, they don't take the responsibility to look into something before they watch it. And we have a
That's
lot of great
also
we have a lot of
true.
great resources to do that. IMDb, you can go to IMDb and it'll tell you everything that is in the movie that's bad, and it'll
There is yeah,
describe it.
there is a parental guide on IMDb that's been a function of that site for
Yeah,
seemingly ever. For those of you who have young children and are concerned about whether a movie is going to be too violent, sexual things and whatnot, like um, it'll tell you on there. Also, there will probably be people who have seen the movie that will also tell you.
yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
you got to do your job as a parent or anybody,
mm,
whoever you are. You got to, don't blame these companies for, but that it's society reflecting on these business. It goes back and forth. People in society are trying to sue people for things. So then these companies are like, well, we're going to cover our ass and we're going to just censor all this stuff so nobody can sue us. And
it is reactionary.
it's a
Yeah.
reactionary thing, and it goes back and forth. And honestly, we all need to chill the fuck out and try to enjoy the things that we want to enjoy, and stop trying to, um, you know, make everybody like what everybody wants everybody to like. It's everybody can like whatever they want, and stop judging everybody, and let's just
Mm.
fucking live in this world and stop fucking. I feel like I'm saying some big speech or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna.
are.
Yeah,
You're right. This is your TED talk.
I know
This
this
is
is.
your TED talk.
I just wish people would stop being so fucking sensitive, and let people like what they like, and like just get over it, man. And I mean, none of this stuff's happening to you. It's just movies. Like, it's not. What do you have to be angry about? I mean, or sensitive about? Like, Everybody's got their own experiences. Let them
Also,
have.
I mean, and yeah, you can say whatever you want about
Yeah,
really
you can. You
anything.
don't have to like something, but you don't have to make
Yeah.
everybody else not like it. Like it's not. It's
Mm.
annoying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, context being what it is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and like if somebody's a white supremacist and they like a white supremacist movie, maybe you should criticize them.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I'm
Maybe
not
you
saying you.
should.
Once again, we're not condoning anything, but it's also not our place to just say no to everything. Like it's not just because we don't like something. Like I mean, yeah, there are lines that I'm sure we would like to just be like, okay, but that's up to the companies themselves. If they're making white supremacists that are in, hey, well, maybe we should not be having a Disney around. Like that's a whole
Mm.
other. But I think for the most part, companies draw lines that don't get that far, um, in the sense of like, you know, just doing Nazi movies, like
Yeah,
pro
but
Nazi
like
movies.
like pro, yeah, like I was saying, pro Nazi, pro white supremacist
It's never
films, like
never
stuff like
typically
that,
goes that
and
far.
it's like those I think should be
I mean, for instance,
those should be criticized.
A movie like
I mean,
American History X shows
what's a more
it's
complex
a
type of
complex
film?
movie, but it shows a lot of pro-ness
Mm.
in that movie, especially how convincing Edward Norton
The
is
brainwashing, the
when he's
manipulation, the
talking about
lies.
that it, he's so good in that movie that he could have turned some people into, onto some of the ideas in that movie. But
I mean,
I mean,
ironically, that movie came out, what, over 20 years ago,
yeah,
and, we're seeing now that there are a lot of people who do fall into that life, into that style, into the brainwashing in which that movie
yeah,
depicted, and if anything, it was prophetic in terms of the way you can manipulate people
sure.
to do anything,
But
and you know what I mean? And and the movies like that I think are important to teach us the lesson that these people exist, these things are happening. Me obviously movies fictitiously heighten things and they,
sure.
play with reality and whatnot, but there is a basis for things like that in our society. We see it all the time. Um, but yeah, it's a very complex, very
It's a
complicated
complex
question.
issue, and if I have misspoken in any way, I'm sure because I babble a lot. I apologize, but I don't think I have. I don't know, but
Hmm.
but I do think that it's not really filmmakers' responsibility for me to have to like hold back and not talk about difficult subjects, and it's it's not companies' responsibility to not put them things out when they're difficult things. I think they should keep doing that. We want our art to
Mm.
be complex and interesting and pushing boundaries and
Challenging. Yeah.
challenging and showing us things about our existence that we might not
That are
understand,
very uncomfortable.
yeah, that are uncomfortable. And the more we do stuff like this, the more we're pushing interesting filmmakers away from doing interesting art. And so we need to not do this, and people need to just uh, get over themselves. All right, let's move. Let's
Mm.
move on.
Okay, move on. Move on to more. I was gonna say
Well,
important
yeah,
news, but I mean it's important to us here, collectors. We do have some stuff to talk about this week, but it was a
we do have one
ever
annoying
so slow
thing.
week.
We do have one annoying thing to talk about: the Regent locking of some 4Ks.
Oh yes, I mean that does go hand to hand into the collecting bit of it all.
Yeah,
Um, Shout Factory in their not infinite wisdom, obviously the opposite of it. Two of their most recent releases, 4K releases, surprise, surprise, are region locked to Region A land.
yeah,
And that is their 4K UHD release of Brotherhood of the Wolf
yeah.
and their 4K UHD release of People Under the Stairs are both Region A locked. So those of you in the international market who are looking to get this disc or import it, be made aware of it. It's odd as heck because typically UHD discs are region
Region
free.
free.
They've
Yeah.
been region free since their inception years ago. And I thought it was frowned upon to do this, and Shout Factory said they did it accidentally, and they won't be reissuing any corrected discs
Is that
in
for
this
sure?
case.
We know that.
I think that's what I heard.
I mean,
Um,
I'd heard the opposite, that somebody said that they were trying to set up a
oh, that they
program.
are? Oh,
That's what
okay.
I heard, but I don't.
Maybe I should actually Google stuff before I say things.
Well, I mean, it's things are moving in real time, but it's. I thought I had heard somebody say that a program was going to get set up, but I don't know that anything's legit yet. But let's hope that they do, because I mean, if the licensing for this is that it's supposed to be region free, which, as we've said, 4Ks are supposed to be, that needs to be honored. I don't think we should be having, I think that's one of the great things about the 4K thing, is that it kind of, it can be put out in the UK, it can be put out anywhere, and anybody can get it and feel comfortable if they're not region free with their player. So, uh,
I always thought region encoding was bullshit anyway.
well,
I,
I mean, it's a money thing. It's a money
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that's the bullshit of it all, is
Yeah.
that it was a money thing, it's a licensing thing.
And
Obviously, region encoding still happens with Blu-rays and whatnot.
well, I mean, it's of course like like a lot, our computers are different companies make these players, and it started with the players. I think the players could only play certain, they manufactured them differently, and that set them up to where they would only play them in a certain way, and
Yeah, it all came down to, like, technical
it's all
stuff, like
tech
encoding.
stuff. But yeah.
NTSC, which is what I this is minutia shit, which I think is what the video here was encoded in, not encoded in, but some type of formatting. I think it had to do with like speed and frames per second and stuff. And in the UK and Europe, it was in PAL,
Yeah.
which was slightly faster, so you couldn't. That's why you couldn't, play one
Yeah.
here and one there without a converter and all that kind of stuff. Essentially, that's what kind of the region free players do, is they calibrate for those different minutia technical aspects of it all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's all very technical jargony stuff. But the great thing with UHD is, like we were saying, is that you could import a disc from Arrow putting out one in the UK that wasn't available here, and you can play it in your UHD player, and it would work perfectly. Um, yeah, that was kind of great. The accompanying Blu-ray that would come with it wouldn't play, but you
Yeah.
gotta take what you can get,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless you have
Yeah.
a region-free 4K player, which do
Sure.
exist. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so that
It's annoying.
it's annoying. It's a little thing. It's not out of the realm of what Shot Factory has issues with before. They've had many a numerous replacement program for discs. They've had issues with discs in the past and all that kind of stuff. So it's not unusual.
No, I hate to say it, but it's normal for them. All right, so let's get into Blu-ray announcements for the week. We got a couple one-offs before we get to some of the slates. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's go with Synapse.
Okay.
Synapse had a release. Of course, it's one of the ones I didn't get up when I was opening up my tabs earlier. But yeah,
I got it here. If you
I got it right
okay,
here, actually. Thank
okay,
goodness it's one of the few ones that are at the top of the list. This is Tombs of the Blind Dead. Now you can watch this now because it is streaming on Shutter, and it's getting a new restoration of the film. This is a a zombie film from 1972. It's I think a Spanish. I believe it's in Spanish. Yes, it's a Spanish zombie film from 1972, and it is a very interesting film.
hmm
Um, it's a film, it's a film that takes place at the border of Spain and Portugal. These young friends are like going through the countryside, and this woman is jealous of her friend, and this other person are having a kind of they kind of have, there's a little love triangle thing going on here, but the other two kind of favor each other over her. She gets a little jealous. She jumps off of this train in the countryside, goes and hangs out in this tomb, and this tomb happens to be an ancient burial ground for the Knights Templar, who at one point were kind of um like cast out or were disbanded or whatever because they were huge of witchcraft back in the Middle Ages and whatnot. And unfortunately, there's a curse. And the curse is that they are these blind zombies. and
Ah,
and they are gonna come, and they come back from the dead, and they attack her while she's in this tomb. They turn her into a zombie, and her body gets found, and then she starts attacking people in this local thing, and then her friends try to find her body and find her, and then figure things out, and then things ensue. You know what I mean?
All
Zombie
right.
stuff happens. Steven, can you hold on for 1 second? I gotta
Sure.
go. Just put a pin in this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, so yeah, that sounds interesting. I don't know that I've seen any Spanish zombie films, but
All right, I'm back.
What happened?
Oh, my stomach started hurting.
I was gonna say. I think it
Yeah,
might have been a bathroom emergency.
yeah, it was a bathroom emergency. Yeah. Oh, so
Happens.
what was I saying? Oh yeah, I'll just pick up from where I left off.
Yeah.
So the movie is streaming, like I said, now on Shutter, and it's fine. It's not
Yeah.
particularly great. That premise is pretty generic, as we've seen, and fun. What is kind of a cool little interesting thing is that the zombies, they can't see you, but they can detect you based off of sound.
Mm.
So that's something I think it's been utilized in a lot of horror films, where you take away some monsters' ability, and then like the other one is heightened. They
Yeah.
don't really go into it, but that's kind of the assumption behind
Well,
it. And
they also did it in Don't Breathe.
yeah, well, that and oh, what's the movie directed by John Krasinski, starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt?
Oh,
Um,
the one with the end of the world monsters. The
oh my goodness, I actually really like this movie.
Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place, and then A Quiet Place 2, and then I think they're making a third one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got the first two on, I think, 4K. Yeah. So, and what is interesting is that these old like Templar knights are dressed in like these rags and stuff, and then like they also have like zombie horses, I guess. So
Cool.
they reminded me a lot of the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
but just like evil. Well, I
Okay.
guess the ring wraiths were evil too.
No, they're not evil. Yeah, they were unfortunate
But
kings that.
well, the thing is,
Yeah.
like, the ring wraiths are kind of just like basically slaves to Sauron and
Yeah.
just doing his bidding. So they're neither living nor dead. They're just these these creatures, really, these spirits. Um, but yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. So that's the one Synapse release that is coming. It kind of popped up out of nowhere. You're getting 3 audio commentaries with this release, which is a lot, and then a bunch of other features too.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, Synapse didn't put out a ton, but when they do, I mean, yeah, they always put out really good stuff. So, next, let's go over to I was telling you this before. So, there's a release coming from Film Masters, and I believe they were previously Film Detective, which I believe there was some people moved on from Film Detective, and then one of the people decided to stay behind and create this new Film Masters line. So this new label here. So this is the first release of the. I believe they have other releases, but this is the first one I think we've talked about with this new line, Film Masters, and the film is 1959's Beast from Haunted Cave. Um, it's
Yes.
describes here in a skiing station in Dakota, a gang of criminals led by Alexander Alex Ward plans the heist of gold bars from a small bank, while the lover of Alex, Gypsy, her name's Gypsy Bullet, goes to a isolated cabin with the ski instructor Gil Jackson. A time bomb explodes a cave to divert the attention of the locals, and the gangsters steal the gold. But the explosion releases a spider like monster, and due to a storm, the group becomes trapped in Gil's cabin and is threatened by the creepy beast.
Nice. Do you know who
Yeah.
directed this movie?
Please tell me.
Monty Hellman.
Okay.
Do you know who Monty Hellman
I
is?
don't.
Monty Hellman directed Two Lane Blacktop,
Oh, I know that one.
the Criterion film, well, the movie that's been put out by Criterion on Blu-ray now for over a decade, and then DVD beforehand. Monty Hellman passed away a couple of years ago. He was great. He would show up in a lot of those documentaries about the '70s American independent cinema,
Okay.
the new Hollywood. He would show up in a lot of those. He did like some YouTube videos on one time. He did a lot of teaching as well. But he also did he directed Ride the Whirlwind and The Shooting, which is also a Blu-ray release by Criterion and a double feature release.
Yeah.
Two kind of like acid washed, like um uh, different kind of westerns, like more like thematic westerns, really, really like art house western stuff, really good stuff. I think Jack Nicholson was in one of those films. But yeah, I wanted to get more Monty Hellman's work just forever. And I guess early on in his career, he did direct a lot of monster films. He directed the Beast from the Haunted Cave, The Terror, um, and yeah, and it's cool to see somebody's early work.
Yeah.
So that's what really kind of intrigues me about this release. Um,
Okay.
yeah, The Terror. Yeah, oh boy, The Terror is a movie. I think it was an anthology film. Um, but anywho, because it's just directed by a bunch of different people, like it was Roger Corman type stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what this movie is, kind of a Roger Corman type picture. And yeah, I'm actually for a movie that I didn't know about a half an hour ago, I kind of want it now.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the quality of this release is going to be. I have no idea. This is the first release from this company, so I have no idea
I don't know if it's
anything
the
really
first
about it.
release, but
I, I'm on their Blu-ray.com page, and this is the only release from
oh,
Film
okay.
Masters.
Okay.
Um, Film Detective obviously is different company, but this is
Yeah.
the only one under this name.
Gotcha.
If
Okay.
that makes it more clear. I does say a new 4K a restoration from 35 millimeter archival materials. There's an extended TV version of the movie. There's a bonus film in here, Ski Troop Attack, fully restored, and there's an essay. There's a booklet with an essay by C. Courtney Joyner and Tom Weaver. So this is a cool, just hidden gem. I'd say.
Well, hopefully it's a gem. We'll find out
I
if you
I
ever
got a
watch
feel
it.
it's a monster movie from 1959. I'm not putting too much stock in it, but I kind of want it just because I have other Monty Hellman films. That's what
Gotcha.
gets me.
That's
That's what gets
good. It
me.
gets you every time.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's move over to Kino. You got to
I was
just
gonna say MVD, but sure.
or go for it. Go for it.
Oh
I know
yes,
it's
so MVD Visual is putting out a Blu-ray under their MVD Classics line. Yes, their MVD Classics line of Four Bullets for Joe, starring Fernando Galeana, Mario Guerra, and Jose Malachi.
wow.
Malachi? I don't know. Mallorca? I don't know idea. The release is scheduled to arrive on the market on October 24th. Ironically, all of these releases that I think we just talked about, all are all coming out in October,
Mm,
and they're being put out by different companies.
yeah.
So I don't know what the connection is there. I guess everybody's getting their October stuff ready to roll. So the description of this film is the mysterious death of a man who is about to leave a small town in Kansas with his girlfriend sets off a series of unfortunate events that will only end when her brother, the legendary and notorious gunslinger Frank Dalton, exacts a ruthless and bloody revenge. It kind of got me. It
Oh man.
kind of got me with that premise.
Uh
It's a revenge film.
oh.
I'm a sucker for revenge
Yeah, I'm a
films.
sucker for revenge movies. Yeah.
Um, yeah, we know MVD has got that reputation too. So I got there's some check marks in the positive category for making a spreadsheet or something.
Yeah, and this like you did say this is a new line, right? The classics line.
I don't know if I've seen because they've got the MVD retro stuff,
Yeah.
and this looks like a different line of older films,
Yeah.
even more older than the retro stuff. Because the retro stuff is a lot of more 80s,
Yeah.
a lot more 80s stuff, and this is obviously from 1964. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's a new line. I probably should check up on that. Um, but it's from MVD coming out in October. Um, I'm
Yeah.
intrigued. I'm intrigued.
All right. Coolio. Now let's go over to Kino. We only got a few things from them, which is it's kind of been the normal recently. They've been a little bit slower, which is fine. I'm glad that they're pacing themselves.
Yeah, and we're gonna start out with a movie that I already have in my collection because I did not anticipate this release coming. This is Ida Lupino's Outrage. Um, and we've talked about this movie a couple of times. We talked about it when it was released by Imprint. We talked about it with Alexandra Heller Nicholas because she did a special feature, I think, for the Imprint release. If memory
yeah.
serves, Stephen.
Yep.
And of course, it's an Ida Lupino directed film, and so I had to get it from my collection. And yeah, this is coming with It says restored in HD by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan of a 35 millimeter fine grain print. So I don't know if this is a new feature, a new restoration that wasn't included with the imprint release. I'd have to, you
I
know,
don't believe this commentary was on the.
yeah, obviously that's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah,
I've just meant like visually, I don't know if it's um going to be similar or if this is going to look actually better. Um, I know they did that with a couple of the other releases from them. They just didn't have that available. Um, but you know what? I think this is maybe the same one. It says, yeah, I have no idea. Because all I know is that it was the master that was used for the imprint release was provided by Paramount. So if it's the same master that's used here, then they should look similar. If
yeah.
it's not, then I'm not sure. But yeah, but there are like you said, Steven, new special features that
Well, it's
are.
just one new
Oh,
feature.
it's just an audio commentary.
Just yeah, I mean Alexandra Helen Nicholas's is on the imprint release, but that was exclusive at the release, and there's a different one here with Imogen Sarah Smith.
Oh,
That's
so
new.
that's the main difference.
Yeah, and that's the only feature here. So the imprint release, I believe, has another feature or two. So
I think it only has the commentary.
really, I kind
Yeah,
of swore there was at least another something on there,
I
but
know I've got
maybe
it around here somewhere. Mm, I'd have to look for it.
no, it's
It's
fine.
in one of these stacks. It's in
It's
one of these
fine.
stacks.
It's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for taking the pressure off.
It's okay. We're we're just doing this thing.
They're just
Um,
rapping.
um, Now this has been talked about already, but they did confirm the date on the Audie Murphy 3 collection from 1960-63. Is coming out August 15th. And of course, once again, the three films Hellbent for Leather, Posse from Hell, and Showdown. And like I said, we did talk about this back when it was initially announced. So go
Yeah, there's
find
some
that.
new audio commentaries on here and stuff. I think "Hellbent for Leather" is a Judas Priest song. Pretty sure. But anywho,
Okay.
but I was right. The only special feature on that imprint release is that audio commentary by
Hmm.
Alexandra Heller Nicholas because I
That's.
found it.
I wish
Um,
somebody would do some more with this.
Yeah,
Release.
with outrage, because it's a really good
It's
movie.
really good.
It's dealing with contemporary thing in terms of its plot when it comes to, uh, trauma, specifically trauma with sexual assault on women, which is, of course, something that's still prominent within our society and within our culture and the news, and probably even more so than ever with our world of reporting and 24-hour news and stuff. I'm surprised no one has done more with it.
It's
Really
interesting.
am.
Yeah.
Because it's a film that's touching on something that they didn't really talk about back when the movie was made in 1950. And a
Yeah.
lot of people still don't even want to talk about it now, even though it's more rampant. But moving on from there, we've got some films by Rene Clement. So I guess they've got a bunch of Rene Clement in the catalog. We've got The Day and the Hour, or Le Jour et l'heure. It's a 4K restoration by Gaumont. It's got a new audio commentary by Sam Deegan. And I wanted to watch this movie, but I could not find it to save my life. Um, uh, so it's a film set in World War II. Actually, both of these movies that we're going to discuss by Rene Clement are both set during World War II. It stars Simone Signoret, and she is Therese, a lonely and isolated woman who unwittingly gets involved in the French resistance. When British and American planes are shot down over France, the Germans scour the countryside for the pilots. On her way to Paris, Therese discovers the Allied airmen hiding among a truckload of goats, and she
Hmm.
reluctantly agrees to smuggle the pilots into neutral Spain. And of course, along the way, complications ensue, as one can imagine. Yeah, I really wanted to watch the movie. I just could not find it to watch. But I'm interested because I got to get more Rene Clement in my just viewing history and just in my collection in general. Um, I know we bring him up a lot, and he of course did the movie. I want to say Purple. What's the movie? What's the Criterion movie I always bring up every single time? Purple Noon.
Yeah.
Purple
Purple
Noon.
Noon. Yeah.
That's the one that was released by Criterion, starring Lane Delon, I believe, or is that?
No,
Yes,
it's
it is,
Elaine.
Alain
It
Delon.
is. Yeah.
I didn't recognize his handsome face there for a second.
Mm.
But moving on, we got a 2 hour and 52-minute World War II. I want to use the word epic, but it's not epic in scope, but it's epic in length. Like I just said, 2 hours and 52 minutes. It's a long time for a movie. It's called Is Paris Burning from 1966. 4K scan, new audio commentary. The how do I explain this movie? It's set during August of 1944, during the retaking of Paris by the French resistance as well as the Allied troops who are making their way through Europe. Obviously, if you're a history buff, just to put this into perspective, D-Day, which you can see depicted in Steven Spielberg's um, Saving Private Ryan, was in June of 1944. So by August of that time, they're making their way through Europe and they get to France and they're going to go. They initially weren't going to go to Paris to liberate Paris, but then plans change and they eventually do. But what happens in this film is it depicts the machinations and the things going on with the French resistance within Paris when it comes to protests and skirmishes and plans and deals and all this kind of stuff. Apparently, historically, this is true. Um, Adolf Hitler wanted to blow up Paris if the Allies were going to retake it. That's what he sent. That's what he told his general in this. That's depicted in this film to do is to blow it up. When the Allies and troops got into Paris, they discovered bombs placed in all kinds of places in Paris, including the Eiffel Tower, which you actually do see in this movie of them doing it. For some reason, the general decided not to do it. And the famous quote, I guess, from Adolf Hitler himself is Paris Burning, and that's what they used as the title of this
Hmm.
movie. It's also based off of a book of I think of the same name that came out in 1965, so just a year beforehand. And this movie is you've got to be kind of a history buff to appreciate the film, because it is just a lot of plot happening very quickly, a lot of character movement. The scope and the cast of this film is massive. There are so many names in here, prominent names that just show up at random times during this movie, just for like a scene or two, or just for like a line or two. You've got you. It's a multi international cast of people, from French actors to German actors to American actors. You've got Jean-Paul Belmondo, you've got Charles Boyer, Leslie Caron, Alain Delon's in this film. Glenn Ford shows up at one point. Anthony Perkins shows up at one point. Orson Welles is in this film as a Swiss diplomat who apparently, based off of a true person, who was very involved with the French resistance and making a lot of deals and stuff. And I think they honored him after the war. He popped up in this film. Wasn't expecting it. What a treat! What a treat! Yves Montand is in this film. So many people in this film that are recognizable, I think, to movie buffs. Gore Vidal was one of the screenplay writers of the movie. There's a lot of things happening in this movie, and the movie for me is, it's enjoyable because I'm a history buff. But I think to a lot of people may not get into it because it's hard to dive into this movie because there's so much plot happening over such a long period of time in this movie. There's a intermission, there's an overture at the beginning. There's a lot happening in it, but not a lot of plot heavy stuff. It's more of just like moving from moment to moment. But I relatively enjoyed it. But it's probably going to bore some people. A lot of good action, though. I can say that.
Yeah. Now this
Um,
I remember back when we talked with James McCoskey. I believe he was just starting restoration on this because this is
mm,
restored in association with American Zoetrope, which is Francis Ford Coppola's company. So, yeah. So now you're finally seeing the fruits of that labor, like almost a
oh
year
yeah, it
later.
is associated with. Yeah, I didn't even read that. So that gets me even more intrigued.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's an epic of a movie. But moving on from there, we got a movie that both of us have seen, kind of scaling it down a bit, going from epic war 1960s cinema. Oh, I do want to mention that um, you can stream this on Canopy if that's available to you. That's where I watched it. It is the English dub version of it, which kind of threw me off a little bit while watching it, but it's kind of the only way I could see it. Um, and that stuff always bothers me, but that's just me. But the movie that both Steven and I did see, which was written by Red Skelton of all people. Oh no, Ron Shelton. Sorry, Red Skelton. It's a different movie later on when we get to Warner Archive. Ron Shelton, who directed, I think Bull Durham, right, Steven?
Yeah.
And Tin Cup, or did he just write Tin Cup?
Tin Cup. I think Kevin Costner directed Tin Cup, didn't he?
Am I
Maybe.
way off on that?
No, yeah, I know. You know what? I think he did direct it.
Tin Cup. I know it starred Kevin Costner and Rene Russo. Directed by Ron Shelton.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this film is The Best of Times, starring Robin Williams and Kurt Russell.
Yeah, and so this is kind of a small towny movie. It's about these two guys who were part of their high school football team. Kurt Russell was the quarterback. Robin Williams was the wide receiver, and they had a big game at the beginning. They're kids. They had a big game, and during the kind of the final big play. And this is no spoiler. This is the beginning of the movie.
Literally the opening of the movie.
It's kind of the
There's
setup.
An opening narration.
It's the setup of the movie anyway. You need to know this information to kind of understand where the movie's going. But Kurt Russell plays quarterback. During the last big play, he gets hurt, and then the pass that he throws is an amazing pass. But then Robin Williams'
character,
he drops it, and then he's from then on. When it goes into the present day of the film, he's kind of always known as the guy that dropped the pass. It's a small town, so that's how it is for him. He's always made fun of for it. And then Kurt Russell kind of, the injury he has kind of ends his football career, and he becomes kind of a towny guy that, has his own mechanic shop and, is kind of playing down his life. He's not trying very hard. And so it's kind of about that, like, letting your past living in your past and letting it keep you down. And in this film, they decide to, Robin Williams decides he's going to gather everybody back together to replay that game again with a bunch of 30-something.
Which is kind of ridiculous. It's what the irony is that it's only like 13 years after the game.
Yeah.
And so these guys are all supposed to be, I guess,
in their early 30s.
Early 30s.
Yeah.
But they don't kind of really look like it.
I mean, not really. I mean, Robin Williams was about that age at this time.
I'd have to do the math on that. But it's exactly what you kind of said, Steven. It's the small town mindset, small town society where, like, you're still coasting off of the fumes of your glory days,
Yeah.
And for all the people in this town, their glory days was their high school days. And, they all like just hang out and reminisce about being in high school and being young and being this and all that. And, like, everyone knows each other. Everyone grew up around each other. Your parents grew up around each other. Et cetera, et cetera. Your family's been in this town forever. It's one of those types of settings. And of course their rival is, a bigger, a city school or something like that, a school that has money and legacy and is good and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of an average film. I think what really kind of makes it watchable is the talent that's in it. Robin Williams, of course, Kurt Russell.
I will say this.
There's absurdity in it, though.
It's definitely absurd. I think you gave this movie a little bit more credit than I did. I kind of didn't. I mean, I won't buy this movie, even though I'm a huge Robin Williams is my favorite actor. Like, I would say if there's one actor, I'd say Robin Williams is probably the guy I love his movies the most. Don't love this movie. And
I think there's a reason why this movie doesn't get talked about.
And also Robin Williams to me is miscast in this movie. I don't really buy him as ever being a football player ever.
That you have to suspend your disbelief in
a little bit. Yeah, he comes off as too intellectual, and he just doesn't ever in the movie feel like he was ever like a physical guy.
An athlete.
Never
like
an
he
athlete.
was ever an athlete. But also kind of, I guess, plays into that small town thing where, like, even if football wasn't your thing or if athletics weren't your thing, you were forced to do it because that's just what everybody did. So
Yeah,
you wanted to do what
maybe.
everybody else did, what your friends did, you
Sure.
know?
But also with Robin Williams' character, not even just that, the believability of that, but like I don't feel like he plays to his strengths in the. I mean, his strengths is being funny, and I don't think he's that funny in the movie. I don't think the writing is there for him, and you know, I think Kurt Russell fits in fine in his role, but everybody, I mean, in the wives are fine. I believe who are they're both notable actresses that play the
Yeah, let me look it
wives.
up.
Pamela
Um,
Reed and Holly Palance
yes.
are the wives, and they're both noticeable. You'll know their faces when you see them. Um, but they're good. I like both of them, but I don't know. The movie is just to me the message kind of plays into the idea that it's hard to talk about it without spoiling the movie, but you could probably
You could
guess
probably guess how it
how this
goes
movie's
just
going to
by
end.
yeah, it's just it's not that yeah, it kind of plays out the way you expect it to play out. Um,
Oh, let me say this. Spoiler alert for this movie. If you don't
uh-oh,
want to hear
uh-oh,
about this,
uh-oh.
if you don't want to hear about this, go 2 minutes ahead. Um, but at the end of the movie, they replay the same situation that he fails in, and this time he succeeds. Okay, you probably were going to guess that was going to happen. And to me, honestly, that's the wrong message you send with a movie. That was part of the reason, and maybe, and obviously this was a different time. This was 1980s. People thought about this stuff differently. But to me, when I'm thinking about a situation like this, where you have characters that um, are trying or like failed in their past and they're trying to relive something to somehow, correct it in some way, I
Yeah,
just think
I know what you're saying.
that's the
Yeah.
wrong message to send. You don't,
The whole point is, you can go the other way with like it doesn't matter. Your
well,
past is your past.
the
It's
yeah,
important to live in the moment, live for the
yeah.
time now, be thankful for the
Which
way
is what
what
the
your situations
wives
are
were trying
now.
to do. But
Yeah, you know what I
but
mean?
instead of encouraging them to move on in like a actual realistic and constructive way, they
No.
decide to go back and try to replay something that's, like I said, once again, an unrealistic situation of a
Not
bunch of
only that, but like it doesn't mean I would prefer them exploring the idea that it doesn't mean anything really because the original game was like a championship game. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it meant something to legitimately meant something while this means something, but it also really doesn't. So
It,
they could take that idea being like, this is just a
well,
meaningless
it
game. What's
just it, to
important is the lesson you learn from it. And they
exactly.
didn't really explore the lesson they learned from it. They just kind of
They just play on the
like
idea
they
that
just
Robin
played
Williams he's getting sick of
like we're
being picked.
redeemed now. We got our
Yeah,
redemption.
it's
Our
about not
lives are
being
their
picked on
lives aren't
anymore.
really better.
No, no, no. It's about their life. It's about Robin Williams' reason for doing it is so that he doesn't get picked on anymore. And Kurt Russell only does it. He kind of gets dragged into it, really. Um, Robin Williams kind of drags him into it, and then he kind of like realizes that he's better than the way his life turned out, and so that's why he like continues to do it. But it's like, yeah, at the end, it's like, well, they now have just now I have more confidence. I don't know. I
I
don't know
guess
if that's like
yeah.
what happened to.
I,
So now he has more confidence in himself. So now things are just going to
I guess
change.
now people look at now people are gonna look at him better for playing a
A,
scrimmage
a
like a
scrimmage
pickup
game.
scrimmage game.
Yeah. It just
Yeah,
it's
when you
just kind
break
of
it down, it's like,
immature.
"Really?"
It's kind of an immature look at the idea. Like the ideas are there, but it's like the crux of playing the game again is like so mature that it doesn't fit adults doing it. Like
Yeah, it really doesn't. I
the
mean,
better
I
version of this movie is Little Giants.
I was just thinking that in my head, it was Little Giants.
where
Yeah,
the kids grew up and then became coaches and then caught and then got other kids. They did it through other kids by teaching them how to play football, and then Rick Moranis' character proved that he had the knowledge of football, even though he was a small person that wasn't really good
he
at
didn't have
playing,
the
but
yeah.
his intellect was better than his brothers, played by Ed O'Neill, and that he could be better than him in that way and prove himself that way, not by playing football, trying to be better than his brother.
Right.
So
Um,
that's a better version of this movie made in the
Speaking of which,
90s.
Little Giants does not have a Blu-ray release at all
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, so
And and
get
and
on that, somebody.
Disney.
Yeah, I know
That's
Disney
once again.
even put it out through your movie rewards program thingamadoo where you've been putting out a lot of your back
Well,
catalog
I mean,
stuff.
maybe it's gonna
I
come
don't
out
care.
through, Mill Creek, you know, since
That would
it's
be nice.
they did make
I
that
mean, they
deal.
did make that deal and they've done nothing with it since. So
Yeah,
I
well,
guess we just gotta be patient.
but I've
Little
talked a lot
Giants,
about this
classic.
movie that I didn't like, so
Yeah, you really did. You also you spoiled the whole thing for people,
well, I
but I
told people to go 2 minutes ahead, so
yeah, true. But with the you know what a movie that we don't really kind of have to spoil, is the next one that they just announced this morning as of this recording. They're putting out Kino is putting out a 4K UHD release of Jon Favreau's Cowboys and Aliens, starring Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. Do you remember when this movie came out in theaters? Because I do.
yeah, I do. Yeah.
And do you have it in your collection?
I
Because I
don't.
do.
I don't. I don't.
um, Yeah, I remember this movie, the hype around this movie coming out
Dude.
because they had a whole panel at Comic-Con, before this movie came out when Harrison Ford went to Comic-Con and stuff, and if you know Harrison Ford, he doesn't wanna show
Yeah.
up for these things.
I don't wanna talk about this.
He doesn't wanna show up for, like, for, like, the press tour for his movies either. I'm surprised they got him to go to Cannes for Indiana Jones, really. But this movie is based off of, um I think it's based off of a graphic novel, and this film was, of course, directed by, like I said, Jon Favreau. This was after he had done both Iron Man and Iron Man 2, so he's a hot commodity at the time. This movie had, oh my sweet lord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Um, yeah, this movie had 5 different screenwriters.
God.
Yeah, no, 6. Sorry, 6. Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman, Damon Lindelof, Mark Fergus, Hawk Otsby, and Steve Oedekerk. Those were the people. And then it is based off of a comic book by Scott Mitchell Rosenberg. But this movie starred Daniel Craig, like I said, Clancy Brown's in this film, Paul Dano, Sam Rockwell, Olivia Wilde was in this film, Keith Carradine, um, like we said, Harrison Ford, just yeah, star-studded cast.
Yeah.
And then this movie's not really remembered for being all that good, fortunately. So
It's like a cool premise that just didn't really
I watched the movie once, and I honestly don't
I
remember it because
barely
it's not that
I honestly I can't really judge it that well right now because I don't really remember it. I saw it the one time in theaters,
Oh,
and
goodness
that's
gracious.
it.
So that's
And
like
that's it.
12 years ago for you.
Yeah.
For me, it's not that long because I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it till years later, I think, on Blu-ray. So a spaceship arrives in Arizona in 1873 to take over the Earth, because what they do, starting with the Wild West region. Of course, they got to start there. But a posse of cowboys and natives are all that stand in their way. Yeah.
It's a fun premise, but it just I don't think they captured from what I remember of my experience. They didn't really capture anything that was too exciting. It just
Mm.
didn't. It just they didn't. I don't know. Maybe it was
I think
maybe it
there's a
was just a
reason
little
why.
too slick for something set in
And
that time period. Maybe.
yeah, and this movie is not really ever talked about all that much. It's kind of just average, I would say. You know what I mean? It's got a star-studded cast. I mean, at that time, Daniel Craig had already been in 2 James Bond films. He had already been in Casino Royale. He had already been in Quantum of Solace. And yeah, so he was a hot commodity as well. So you could sell this movie, just based off of
Yeah.
Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig and Jon Favreau, put that Iron Man, spin on it and whatnot. But it's never really remembered. Like, for example, you'll never when they promote anything done by Jon Favreau, they're not going to say from the
Well,
director of Cowboys and
I
Aliens.
can tell you this:
you
if
know,
you want to watch a non-comic book or Star Wars thing of Jon Favreau, go watch Chef. Chef is the
You know what? I was thinking of Chef the other day because
yeah,
you know what? It's crazy. When I saw this announcement, I was, had just woken up today and I was in a daze, that kind of half asleep,
sure.
half awake daze. So I was like, okay, what has Jon Favreau directed? Because I was thinking of his filmography directorially, and so I asked my phone, I asked Siri,
Come on, man. Why
and
didn't you just know?
I don't know because I was thinking, and Siri said like the usual Iron Man 2, and then Cowboys and Aliens. Didn't mention Chef and didn't mention
Z-
Maid, which is another film that he directed. No one
Zathura.
talks about that movie.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Zathura.
and Zathura. I mentioned
Yeah.
Zathura, and I've actually never seen Zathura, and I don't
What?
own it, and I want it now. But I do have Chef. I saw Chef in the theater. Underrated movie.
Chef is
No one
amazing.
talks about that. Makes me
Fucking
hungry every time I think about it.
it's fucking molten. It's molten. Lava cake. It's molten.
That's a great
It's
great food movie. Great
dude.
food
You
movie.
watch that movie, you'll want to eat a fucking amazing grilled cheese. He makes an amazing grilled cheese
Yeah, I
sandwich.
think about that a lot.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like
about
the
that
most
grilled
amazing thing
cheese.
I've ever
The
seen.
Cuban sandwiches that he makes at the
Yeah,
end.
I had never in my life had Cuban sandwiches up until I saw that movie,
Yeah.
and then I had Cuban sandwiches after that. I
Thank you,
haven't had
John.
one in years though.
Yeah. And then he
Oh,
went on to do like a Netflix show that was
where
based
was him
around
cooking?
Chef. Yeah.
Yes, where was him cooking?
Yeah.
And then he
Him
went.
cooking
Yeah,
with
it's called The Chef Show.
yeah. Well, he did it with celebrities, I believe. He had brought
Yeah,
certain Robert Downey
It
Jr.
aired.
came on, I think.
Yeah, because they're buddies. It
Yeah.
aired in 2019 to 2020, I think, on Netflix.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, there you go.
As usual, you don't really hear me when I say
No,
things.
no, no. I'm in my own head. But you're right. Like Seth
Yeah.
Rogen was on, Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Rodriguez, Dave
Yeah.
Filoni,
Yeah.
Bill
People,
Burr,
his
Kevin
buddies.
Feige
Yeah.
was in an episode. Yeah. So this is an interesting 4K UHD release. I don't know if it's going to be a hot seller, but
I'd be interested in rewatching it, but I'm not going to buy this 4K. I can tell you that.
I don't think I need to upgrade for my Blu-ray. To be honest,
I'd be interested in watching it again to see how I feel now. And if I change my mind, then sure, maybe I'll buy it. But at this point, no.
I am curious. I am curious how it's going to look, though. I mean, it's 2011 is not that long ago when it comes to special effects. It's a special effect heavy movie.
Yeah.
I want to see how those translate, how those have held up over time.
Yeah.
But the movie that I mentioned very briefly is his directorial debut is the movie called Maid, which it's him and Vince Vaughn are in this film. Famke Janssen's in the film. Tom Morello, the guitarist, is in the film as well.
Yeah.
And this movie, I'm pretty sure, only has a DVD release. Because I think actually no, it doesn't. It's available on Blu-ray here in the States in a 2-pack put out by Lionsgate Films in 2012 that's now out of print and selling for $90 on Amazon. Fascinating.
Huh.
People get very confused. Jon Favreau did not direct Swingers. That's Doug Liman.
Yeah.
Everyone makes that
He's
inaccuracy.
in it.
He's
He's
only
an
in that
actor in
movie.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's only in it. But people always confuse that. But that is it from Kino.
Yep.
That is all she wrote from Kino. Now we've got Radiance. Figured we go to Radiance now because Radiance has 2 movies. One of which I did get to see, one of which I did not get to see, although I wanted to see it. I found it on the Internet Archive, actually, of all places. No subtitles. So it's a Spanish movie called The Dead Mother. And this is getting a 4K restoration, or as it's called online. And actually, if you go to IMDb and you type in The Dead Mother, I don't think this shows up. It's called La Madre Muerta, and this is coming out in September. I think these are both their September releases.
Okay.
So it's The Dead Mother, which is I saw the opening of the film. Pretty dark.
Yeah.
Pretty dark. The description, Ishmael breaks into the house of a fine art restorer and shoots the homeowner dead, leaving her daughter orphaned and traumatized for life. What this doesn't tell you, he also shoots the daughter and she survives. But years later, Ishmael is working in a bar where he sees the daughter again. Paranoid that she recognizes him and will report him, he kidnaps her and holds her hostage. That's the premise of this movie. Yeah, sounds pretty dark to me. It's directed by Juanma Bajo Ulloa. Apparently, it's his second feature film, which won a host of international awards and was a precursor to the Spanish genre explosion. but this is um yeah, so this is a obvious this is coming with a limited edition CD soundtrack and as well as a bunch of other special features too. Um and
Yeah,
then
it
yeah, I'm interested
it
in
looks
that.
interesting.
The
And I
cover art is frightening.
it invokes the Joker. A
Oh, it
little
very
bit.
much does so.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you said dark, and I had heard like you said, it does apparently kind of. It says it feels like a Coen Brothers movie, that gothic thriller, pitch black humor type of Coen Brothers stuff. So that really has got me super. Yeah, I'm getting every ratings release right now, so this will be, of course, scooped up for me.
Yes.
And so yeah,
So yeah, and there is a second film here called Scream and Scream Again. Um, this is um, this is streaming. I forgot where I watched it streaming. I watched it someplace streaming. It's Tubi. I want to say Tubi.
okay,
Tubi may have had this. And Scream and Scream Again stars a star-studded cast, but don't let that confuse you or intrigue you or get you to buy this movie because it's a little bit of a lie. So it does star the legendary trio, you could say, of Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. But don't think you're gonna see them featured prominently in the movie. The Vincent Price is the one who's in the movie the most, and the other two not so much. There's only really like one scene that Christopher Lee and Vincent Price share together, and it is like the climax of the movie at the end. So don't. And then Peter Cushing's in like one or two scenes in the movie, but so, the premise is this: a serial killer runs amok over London, draining his victims of their blood. Vampirism, you say? Perhaps. A mad doctor performs experimental surgery on his victims, taking them apart limb by limb. Yeah, it's as weird as you can get. A shady organization from Eastern Europe is involved in some way, while intelligence officer Fremont investigates, bringing together the biggest horror stars of the era: Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. Um, uh, and then it says Amicus Productions pulled out all of the stops to compete with rival studio Hammer. Well, they got all the Hammer stars to be in this.
yeah,
But directed by genre specialist Gordon Hessler, who directed The Oblong Box, which was another Vincent Price film. Scream and Scream Again is a diabolical sci-fi horror hybrid and counted Fritz Lang amongst its admirers, dabbling with conspiracies, mad doctors, and the dying days of swinging London. This is a bonkers movie. It really is, and this premise really doesn't do it justice. There's a lot of wild things happening in this movie that I don't want to get into, but it's very much uh, kind of going for over the top type stuff in it. Like you said, it's a murder investigation. There's some sci-fi weird stuff going on. There's dismemberment happening. There's somebody who's a serial killer who's drinking the blood of its victims. Yeah, and then you got Vincent Price as a mad scientist doing some stuff too. There's a lot going on in it, just a lot.
hmm,
But this is once again coming with a lot of special features from Radiance, audio commentary, interviews, all kind of stuff on Gordon Hessler. Um, yeah, so
okay,
I like Steven kind of said, I'm always I'm always down for what Radiance is doing.
yeah. It's an eclectic bunch. We're getting so many different things from so many different countries, and I very much appreciate that about from any label I'm investing my money into. So I will continue to buy from them and take chances, and hopefully it pays off for me. Hopefully I like these movies. But
Yeah, so
th-
I want to say Scream and Scream Again did get two actually Blu-ray releases here in the States. It got one that looks like from Twilight Time, and then one um, from Kino.
yeah,
And the Kino one came out in 2019, which is not that long ago, and they're both, and that one is still in print. But I don't think it's coming with as nice a special features package as this one is.
okay. Before we move on to our last slate, they are putting out a standard edition of the Sunday Woman. which is sold out. You can maybe find it in a couple little retailers, but it's kind of dried up. It's gone fast. I know.
And that movie that was one of their April releases, I think.
Yeah,
So it must have sold out very, very quickly.
yeah. I think Radiant stuff is catching on quick. People don't want to. They don't want to miss out on the limited. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough, man. But it's good for business. It seems like Radiance is doing really good early on. This is their first few months in existence, and people seem to be all on board. So that's good. But let's go to our last slate, which is Warner Archive. Um,
Yes.
I know you're always really excited when Warner
You
Archive
know
has
what?
new releases.
I am. You know what
I
it is?
know.
I was just going through this stuff the other day, just as I normally do, just browsing around on the internet, you know, procrastinating my time, and their catalog is so deep now. It's kind of never ending, and we've got more to add to the list here, and some good stuff, and some other stuff that maybe not so good. Um, I did get to see all of these releases, so let me run these
Well,
down, and then
let's not go too heavy.
all
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
but
we're
yeah,
already we're running hot. Running hot. I got you. So we have Cimarron, The Fastest Gun Alive, Helen of Troy, Dewberry Was a Lady, The Last Time I Saw Paris, and Broadway Melody. So you got
did you
some
say
musicals, some westerns.
did you say do just like a lady?
It says Dewberry Was a Lady.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay, I just make sure.
Dan, Dan. I know where you were
Do
going.
just like a lady. Yeah, it kind of
Yeah,
almost sounds like it if you say it fast enough.
Yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire reference. First time I ever heard that song. Robin
Yeah.
Williams, of
Yep.
course, in that
Yep.
movie.
Got
Yeah,
to
we
bring it
talked
back.
about a Robin Williams movie.
Yes, we did.
Nice, nice. But let's start with I don't know. Let's start from the top. Cimarron is a Western epic from 1931. I believe this is a Best Picture winner. This is getting a 4K restoration. I think at this point Warner Archive does nothing but 4K restorations. That's all they do,
Yeah.
and they look immaculate. So this is, like I said, a Best Picture winner, I believe, from 1931. This is an epic western that takes place over a number of years, starting in like the late 19th century. You follow these essentially these two characters really, and it's someone who is just it's about like the expansion west or the expansion into new territory and settling new towns and things like that, and just um, really those types of western things. It's like when the governor opened up his Oklahoma territory for settlement, restless Yancey Cravat claims a plot of free land for himself. And he also meets um, a woman who portrayed by Irene Dunn, the great Irene Dunn. They end up getting married, having a family, settling down. But of course, he wants to go to other land and stuff like that. So their relationship, it gets strained over time. And then the movie like takes like leaps and bounds forward in time, and you just kind of see these people's lives from like all the way from the 1890s all the way up until I'm assuming to when this movie came out in the 30s and whatnot. So it's one of those types of movies. It's not known as one of the best picture winners of all time. It's kind of one of the not greatest ones.
Yeah.
But it's considered an epic for its time. It would, very, large production and all that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. I didn't really enjoy it. If anything, I actually saved it for the last one to watch just because I knew it wasn't going to be that good. And I was right. It's not very good. It did, like I said, it did win 3 Oscars for Best Picture. It won for Best Writing Adaptation and one for Best Art Direction.
Mm.
So that's that type of movie, like that kind of old school epic western. Um, the next one is a western as well, but it's a different type of western starring Glenn Ford, the fastest gun alive. It's Glenn Ford is the fastest gun alive. I mean,
Wait,
it's in the title of the
he's
movie.
actually a gun.
I get. Well, he can draw the fastest.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's the premise of it. So, he plays a yeah, he stars as a guy who is known as George Temple, but he's kind of hiding out in this town. He's kind of put away an old part of his life where he apparently knows how to draw a gun very, very fast, and he is the fastest gun alive, as the title of the movie suggests. So he and his wife are, who's portrayed by Jean Crane, I believe, are living in this town, and then some bad guys show up, and he's got to go back to his old ways, but he's very hesitant from it. To do it. He's hesitant about it because for certain reasons, I won't get into it. But there's this other guy who is this bad guy, this outlaw, who claims that he is the fastest gun alive. And
Oh no.
once he is portrayed by Broderick Crawford, who plays just a gnarly bad guy, and once he hears that there's somebody who's claimed to be a fast gun, he wants to challenge him, of course, because he's got to be the fastest. You
My
know,
my dad could beat up your dad.
yeah, that stuff. Like I don't if he's claiming it, I gotta stop him. A young Russ Tamblyn is in this film. Russ Tamblyn, of course, was in West Side Story as well as Twin Peaks. The father of Amber Tamblyn, who's an actress. Um, so that's that movie. I enjoy that movie very much. The Fastest Gun Alive. I thought it was a pretty good western and dealing with some themes in there that I found very interesting. Next, you have Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy. How many times have they turned this story into a movie? Countless times, I would say. This is directed by Robert Wise, who coincidentally, I think, directed West Side Story that I just mentioned. Didn't really expect that.
Mm.
He, of course, was also the editor on Citizen Kane and, of course, director and whatnot. But Helen of Troy is exactly what you're assuming it is. It is another adaptation of the story of the Iliad, the Trojan War, and the famous fictional story of Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships, all of that stuff. So you get that story here. It's a fine epic. It I I don't have much to say about it. I know the cost of the movie was apparently $6 million at the time,
Mm.
and for 1956, that's a lot of money. Apparently it had like 30,000 extras on screen. So it's one of those like epics from the 50s that were being made at the time that were very popular. It's a Sword and Sandals epic. Um, I'm curious what it's going to look like though with the new 4K restoration. I'm guessing very nice. Um, yeah, for those of you who have studied or watched any of the adaptations of the Trojan War, you know the story. Um, you know the story. Steven, did you ever see the movie Troy with uh, what's his name, Brad Pitt?
Yeah, I've seen it. He gets naked in that movie.
That's what you're.
All right.
Interesting.
Did I just choke you up? Uh,
No, no, no. I'm losing my voice, but yeah, that was kind of one of the first adaptations of the Trojan War that I ever saw. When did that come out? 2003. I was a sophomore in high school, and I saw that in the theater. I remember that movie.
yeah, you got to see some Brad Pitt butt. You got to see some
Great cast in that film. If you know the cast in
Eric
that movie,
Bana. Eric,
yeah,
yeah, it's got who plays Helen? What's her name from
I
National
believe
Treasure?
it's
Chris,
Diane Kruger.
Diane Kruger. Good choice. Um,
Orlando Bloom plays Paris.
God, he's such an idiot in that movie.
Oh, he's an idiot in this one too. Eric Bana as Hector. You've got Brian Cox plays Agamemnon.
Mm.
Brendan Gleeson is Menelaus.
That dude was in
Um,
every fucking epic war
yeah,
movie.
apparently. Sean Bean was Odysseus. Garrett Hedlund was Patroclus. So Sean Bean was Odysseus, and there were rumors at that time after that they were going to make an Odyssey movie with Sean Bean as Odysseus, and it
Yeah.
just never happened. And I hated that it never happened. The story of the Trojan War is massive because the Trojan War actually took place over 10 years, but in the Iliad, you only see like the last part of it, and then you get like certain fragments of story from beforehand. So that's why we know the origin of it, like how Paris took Helen, and then from the Greeks over to Troy, and then then that started the whole thing. So it was a massive, like long war. But I also remember, who else was in the movie? It was who played the father of Eric Bana and Orlando Bloom. It was why is he recorded so low on this? Peter O'Toole.
Mm,
Peter O'Toole was
yeah,
in this movie,
yeah.
and I think that was like one of the first times I had ever seen Peter O'Toole in a movie. And of course, I've been a big fan of him, now as I've gotten older and just going back and seeing his work. But yeah, this was an epic film at that time, directed by Wolfgang Peterson. Um,
He was popular for a minute. Like the
well, I
90s,
mean,
he Wolfgang Peterson was like the shit in the 90s.
well,
Like
Air Force One, Outbreak,
in the
Enemy Mine,
in the
whatever
line of
the
fire, is amazing.
yeah,
Yeah,
in the Line of Fire. Um, yeah, The Perfect Storm in
perfect storm.
2000.
Yep,
Um,
he had a
yeah,
good
he
run
didn't.
there.
Yeah, and he directed Poseidon, which I think was the remake of the Poseidon Adventure
Yeah,
in
Kurt Russell.
2006.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, but this is obviously something completely different, the 1950s version of it, of Helen of Troy. But moving on from there, Dewberry Was a Lady. This movie stars Lucille Ball, Red Skelton. This is the Red Skelton reference I made earlier. Had Red Skelton on the mind, and this movie also stars Gene Kelly as well. Zero Mostel is in this film as well. Zero Mostel I remember for being in The Producers in the 70s. Hilarious film. Movie I don't think could get made today. But basically, a Red Skelton plays this nightclub like hat check boy, this kind of just regular dude, and he's just like infatuated with the glamorous, like they use a word here, glamorous chanteuse, Lucille Ball, and then. But she's got this kind of romantic relationship going on with Gene Kelly's character, but Red Skelton's just infatuated with Lucille Ball. But Lucille Ball kind of really doesn't have those types of reciprocated feelings towards him. Um, so one day is like he wins the lottery and he proposes marriage to her, but it's only based off of the idea that she's marrying him for his money and not for love, and he's totally fine with it. He doesn't care. But what happens is he wants to get rid of the Gene Kelly character in order to like be like his um to like that so that she would go for him or something. So he tries to have like the waiter or the maitre d at this restaurant slip Gene Kelly oh Steven, what do we call it? We called it a Mickey. We could a roofie.
roofie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And he accidentally takes it himself and gets transported back to like oh my goodness, I don't know, like 18th century, 16th century France, where he is King Louis XV, and his love is portrayed by Lucille Ball now, and he's having this trippy, roofy dream of that happening. And the way the events there to play out is that he is kind of playing out the romance and stuff. It's silly, goofy. There's singing and dancing throughout the movie. It's wild. It's just a wild movie. But that's Dewberry Was a Lady.
it
It
sounds kind of interesting. Yeah.
it sounds yeah, but there's so much singing and dancing in it and stuff. The last time I saw Paris, completely different tonal wise. This movie is about um yeah, this movie stars some big time stars at the time. And yeah, it's based on the F. Scott Fitzgerald um, Babylon Revisited. It's a romantic drama set during WW2, and the movie is framed where this guy comes back um, many years after the World War II, and you kind of see the events that happened while he was there during the war, or really while he was there right in the aftermath of the war. And it's Van Johnson portrays this guy who I think was a journalist, like a photojournalist or a journalist in general, and he was covering the end of the war. He goes to Paris. He ends up um, falling in love with somebody. They have a relationship. Things happen, and you kind of see all of these. Um, you see all of these events happen. He ends up marrying, I believe, um, I think he marries Elizabeth Taylor. Yeah, he marries Elizabeth Taylor, and then her sister is Donna Reed. Ava Gabor is in this film as well. Walter Pidgeon plays the father of this film, who is kind of a kind of a guy who's got some get rich quick schemes that never work out. He's just perpetually broke. But the film is a really great melodrama. I really enjoyed it a lot. It's got certain things in it. Richard Brooks was one of the writers of the film, and he was the director as well. Um, yeah, I really like this movie. I love the characters in it. I'm always a big Liz Taylor fan, so anytime she's in a movie, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. Um, so lastly, here is the Broadway Melody from 1929, and this is a movie that kind of is self-explanatory as to what the um the premise is to it for the most part. So um, I'm not gonna read that. Do you know what? Did you see the description of this? Uh,
Yeah, the MGM made every effort to impress with its finest talking motion picture.
its first talking motion picture,
Yeah, first,
so
sorry.
you can imagine.
Setting a new standard for the big budget films, establishing archetype for decades of movie musicals to follow in
The
the
Broadway
Broadway
Melody.
Melody. Ah,
Yeah, so this movie is about two sisters, Queenie and Hank Mahoney, and they basically go from it's like a rags to riches story. Uh, they follow Hank's boyfriend, who is played by Eddie Kearns, to Manhattan, and they decide that they want to go from vaudeville to the Broadway stage. One sister ends up making it, and the other one really doesn't. So you see kind of the dichotomy between the two. You see the strain between the relationships between the two. You see the romantic entanglements they get into, as well as the personal things going on, and you see love stories and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of music happening, a lot of song sequences that go on for a extended amount of time in this movie, especially early on. But of course, they're really accentuating the movie musical aspect of it all. Also accentuating the fact that they're now transitioning from silent era to talkies. So they've got to put as much audio into this movie as they can. It's fine. It's not a movie musical that I would probably end up going back to revisit anytime soon. Um, there are other ones of that time, especially once you get into the 30s, that I would much rather go back to, like 42nd Street, even like the Ziegfeld Girl and stuff like that. And of course, you'll get the Judy Garland stuff, Doris Day musicals, and all that kind of stuff. I'd go back to first before I go back to this. Um, but yeah, I think that's the entire slate of Warner Archive.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's 6 movies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good little slate.
yeah, and it's diverse slate, I would say.
Definitely diverse and there's just, I mean, like, I don't know that there's a lot here that interests me too greatly. I mean, I think the two that interest me the most are The Fastest Gun Alive and probably The Last Time I Saw You in Paris. But
Those are the two best.
yeah,
The two best, in my opinion.
but
The two ones that I would want in my collection of those two.
yeah, but it's Warner Archive. There's just like we've said many times. There's such a wealth of back catalog stuff that there's always going to be something really cool. I think that you're going to see from a slate that is worth picking up. So just do your homework, do like what Andrew does, watch all of them, make up your mind. But I think Andrew gave you a nice little rundown of that, and take from it what you will. But that's it for 103 of Chasing Labels. Andrew, how are you feeling?
Tired.
I was gonna say you almost lost your voice.
I did almost lose my voice there.
Yeah, but you did a great job. You did.
103 episodes into this, and then we did like 70 something of the previous one. I still don't know how to take care of my voice during a podcast. I don't know how people can do it. I don't know how people can do like
it's
3-4 hour shows.
Sometimes you get sometimes you just we both drink water or something while we're doing it. Sometimes it still doesn't help. But maybe we got to do some exercises with our voice beforehand.
Vocal exercises,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, maybe that's what we got to do. But all that rambling aside, thanks again to the guys from Treasured Films for joining us, Graeme and Tom. Please go check out their stuff. Go to treasuredfilmsuk.com. I believe that's the site. And we'll put the link in the description. Go check out what they got going on. Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, or at my Letterboxd, where you can see what I'm watching. If I ever have a chance to watch anything, it's not as much as Andrew, I can tell you that. But you can find me also at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Instagram, our Twitter. You can also find both of us over at the Facebook group, Chasing Labels Podcast. You can ask to be brought in. We'll let you in, and you can interact with us there as well. Also, you can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.